I just need to get the signal that it's. Should be live.
All right, here we go. From the industrial wastelands of Michigan to the fruited plains of Iowa, this is the American Green.
You are the dead. Remain exactly where you are. Make no move until you are ordered.
Burn the pledges and then burn the ashes. That's our official motto.
Now we can see you. Clasp your hands behind your heads. Stand out in the middle of the room. Stand back to back.
Who can explain the fascination of fire? What draws us to it, whether we're young or old?
Here comes a candle to light you to bed. Here comes a chopper to chop off your head.
And welcome to the American Greed Factory podcast. This is Nathan.
This is Conlon.
Andrew?
We're all back.
Andrew doing his taxes? I don't know.
We're back live.
No, I'm sorry.
So the clicking of your mouse like just jumps through. Sorry. Every time you come, every time you're every time you're on the podcast, we find a new way to just make you stand still and not do anything.
Everybody else gets to look up shit, do stuff on the internet while we were talking. I don't know. I gotta be different.
Galaxy phones.
You bought me this mouse. I don't know.
I know we have the same mouse, so I don't know. Can you hear me clicking mine?
No, but your microphone's way further away.
No, it's actually it's literally 6 inches away from it.
Oh, well then, yeah, I don't know.
Well, no, because the way the mic on your phone is built, it's like omnidirectional, so it's grabbing audio from every direction. That's why we can hear everything.
Oh.
This stuff is more focused, vaguely. So
Well, mine
barely.
Yeah,
Well,
this one's crazy, but it's also
well, here, if you bear with more clicking, I can tell you the mic I'm gonna buy here, probably later this month.
I can recommend the Heil PR40.
Can you plug that in the computer, or do you need a mixing board for that?
No, you need a mixing board and
Okay.
soundboard sound card.
Well, this is just USB gaming microphone, toner, computer condenser, PC mic with tripod stand and pop filter.
Okay.
That would work fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That would
it's like $43 on Amazon, so it's not.
Oh,
that's about what
that kind of seems too much. This thing seems too cheap.
that's about
Well,
what it might cost.
Let's see what the reviews say. Okay, we got 524 reviews. It's 4.5-star mic apparently.
I mean, I got that snowball that I can give you, but because it's still.
Well, I'm gonna sink money. I'm gonna sink money into this show now.
But you want a gaming headset too, right? That's why I'll work.
Yeah.
With. Okay.
Yeah, I just use it because it's more comfortable to do audio and stuff. So.
Have you seen the YouTube videos recently where people because you have people now doing production from home and they just have AirPods in and everything works for some reason? I kind of find that interesting and infuriating at the same time. They literally just have an iPhone and AirPods and they're doing full capable production.
Oh, maybe I just need to buy an iPhone and AirPods. Damn it.
That would probably cost you more than this mic and a soundboard.
No, I know. I was just joking.
That would be $1,300. So yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Are all new Apple iPhones 1,000 plus now, or do they have different variations?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't bought one in a while. Let me look.
But if I buy everything from US Cellular, I can go on a 4-year payment plan and pay for all that shit.
And then the AirPods are those are 120, 160?
I got them on sale for 100, but I think they're normally 120.
Okay.
I don't know. They have different generations now.
Yeah.
I have the older generation. Let's see. Oh, you can get a iPhone SE, the plastic back, for $399.
Oh, okay.
And then if you want to step into the iPhone 11, I don't know. So they give you $500 if you trade in another. Because that's how I got my iPhone 10. Is they were giving me more money to trade it in than I paid for it.
Yeah.
iPhone 6 before, so I was like, yeah, okay. Let's buy it straight out. What is it? with 64 gigabytes. That's what mine has. What carrier is this? It's $899.
Okay.
So,
So I remember those iPhone X's were going for like $1,000, but that was like they had all that extra special shit on it.
yeah, I
All
don't.
the facial recognition and some special screen that had like extra pixel density or something.
Yep, that's what I have. The iPhone X, iPhone 10.
Oh, okay.
But mine was.
No, the X and 10 are different, aren't they?
I think they're the same thing.
Okay.
Let me look. Yeah, it's the same thing because
Okay.
mine doesn't have the. Now mine did not have the double camera, but it did have the It takes nice pictures and it's got the facial recognition, which is funny at work now because we're wearing masks all the time. So if I got to read a text, I got to put in my passcode because if you got a mask on, it doesn't recognize your face. So. It's always like, yeah, can't see you, but I'll give you a chance. So yeah, the noise canceling AirPods that actually stay in your ear, they're like $200.
Huh.
That's actually not bad, but I mean, yeah.
Well, if you're comparing it to like Bose, yeah.
Hey, I only buy Bose anymore, so I mean, technically.
I bought one Bose. I glued that shit together.
Yeah, I'm on my second Bose noise canceling headphones, and so my first ones I had for 7 years, and they just, I sweat them out because I use them to work and stuff outside.
Mhm.
So I got a new set, and the leather, the earpiece is already disintegrated on me, but now they're made out of denim. So,
Oh.
yeah,
This smells like epoxy glue because I had to glue it all back together. But so you see that? See how that's black in there, or that has that kind of a pop filter kind of thing? That's
Yeah.
what's supposed to be there, but I lost that or somewhere. So that's just a shop towel glued into there.
yeah.
It works.
I
What-
took my ear cups apart and used them as a sewing pattern and just made the new ones out of old jeans.
So like the filling on this like started to pop out, so I had to put it all back in there and sew it back together and then glue it onto the earphone.
Yeah, that's what's happening with my ones I bought 5 years ago or 4 years ago. They already came apart like that, and now they're denim.
I mean, what are you gonna do? They're out of warranty and they're still $200 headphones that work
Yeah.
perfectly. So I mean, what are you gonna do? So
Yeah, I have the noise canceling ones that are like $400. Well, I bought them off a guy for $150, but that was a different story.
man, one time I bought this is like this is like early thousands. Like I might have been still in high school. I'm not sure. And I bought the this wireless headphone set, and so you could hook it up to your TV, and just like watch shit off your TV, but the audio went to the headphones. And
Oh, it had like a bass.
Yeah,
station,
yeah.
and yeah. Okay, yeah, I've seen those.
And it was completely. I don't know why I bought it, and I used the fuck out of it. I would just pop. I'd really like pop in Batman or something on the VCR, and
Yeah.
just listen to TV while I was doing something.
Yep. Now your TVs can. I think most of TVs they can Bluetooth to whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, now I listen to podcasts because that makes more sense than like listening to
Yeah.
and not paying attention to a movie. Which I kind of already do that anyways, but it's usually I'm playing a video game while I'm doing it.
Yeah. I listen to a lot of podcasts and audiobooks when I'm in the garage. I had to replace my mower blades this weekend, and then my weed eater quit working.
Okay.
And I went out and got spark plugs, and I checked the fuel lines, and I was looking at the bottom of the weed eater, and it's like, oh, I purchased this in 2008. So how old would this be? It's like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna buy it. I thought I'd had it that long, but apparently, I mean, I've had my mower for 8 or 19 years now. So.
Well, do you ever sharpen the blade yourself, or was it just a?
No, I use mulching blades. But I don't replace the blades but every like 2 or 3 years. And usually what I do is I pull the deck off, and I have Dad got me all this nice rotary air power. Of course, my air compressor died too, but I got to finish the project before that happened. But He got me all those nice rotary air powered tools, so I just sanded it down to bare metal and then painted it again. So now it looks like weirdly shiny and new on the old lawnmower. But yeah, I put new blades on the deck.
Oh yeah, I found a new YouTube channel, or at least it got suggested to me. I don't even remember what it is, but I saw this guy. He just restores stuff, and
Yeah.
one of them was he just restored a Russian drill.
Oh, is that there's a few
Is that a guy that just goes to junkyard and salvage stuff and brings it back and repairs it?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's tons of there's tons of ones that do that. It's just one of them. I'm trying to find what it is. There's that one Japanese guy who buys like goes to like thrift sales and gets like rusty knives and then turns them into works of art. But where is it?
Well, because the guy I've watched, he's in like Netherlands or Sweden or something like that.
Tipsy
He just-
Tube? Is that the guy?
I'm not sure.
There's him and My Mechanics and Hardcore Restoration, which that one's a little silly because we're gonna put diamonds in Vice. It's like what? Diamond studded Vice.
Oh man, I must have. Because I have a lot of build channels that I like subscribe to, and I don't like. I've like I watch one videos of there, and I'm like, I want to see their videos all the time, and then I just never watch any of their channel.
Was the drill blue or green or something? And it was like a big drill, like a two-hander. Yeah, okay. I think I've seen that. 'Cause he did a Russian Vice too. Big Vice.
Okay, the name of the channel is The Small Workshop.
Small workshop. Okay, I haven't heard of
I
that.
swear I've heard of that before.
But yeah, it's got that cool stuff where you grind things down and repaint them, and then there's stuff where you nickel plate stuff. That's always fun because you like put it in a bath and electrocute the bath and nickel plate
Yeah.
it. So.
Yeah, there's the guy, My Mechanics has a full machine shop, and he's in Europe somewhere. And so he restored a Vice from like Germany from 1913 or something, and all the beveled lock plates and stuff were just completely rusted out or worn through. So he's like, to the lathe. And he like has just round stock in the lathe, and he
Yeah.
like pulls it out, cuts it off, and then polishes them, and then they're like, look, brand new. And he restored a gauge from like the 30s, like a big air pressure gauge, and the glass was cracked. And so he found and the face was kind of rusted, and so he painted the face back on by hand of this gauge, and then he found this glass somewhere on the internet, and it's like this gauge looked like it was brand new, but it was that old style.
Yeah.
And yeah, the guy, My Mechanics, is like he's got a full-on machine shop. Like he made bearings, made them because it was an odd size for an old chainsaw. It was like a chainsaw with a foot on the front of it that would grab.
Huh.
And it was I forget what kind. It had a big giant motor on it. You could tell it was old. This thing probably weighed 40 pounds. It'd be the most miserable chainsaw in the world. Giant engine on the back, but yeah, he put it back together. But I like the guys who like just in the machine shop guys like, oh, these washers are no good. You think, oh, go to the hardware store and try to match it up? No, we're just gonna spin them up on this lathe.
Yeah.
Like, that's amazing. Have you ever
Yeah.
seen the lathe restoration channels?
No.
Oh yeah, those guys will go get those Bridgeport lathes from the 20s, where they have and they take them apart, and it's like a car engine transmission for all the different settings, and
Yeah.
sometimes they have the belts you knock on by hand for your different speed rates and stuff.
Yeah.
These guys will record these things. Like, where are you putting this shit? He's like 20 feet long. You know, it's this huge lathe, and they have these giant motors, these big electric motors in them. The guy's like, yeah, we got to send this out to get it rebuilt. It's like, you must get a lot of Patreon money to. Because some of these guys are people that like own machine shops, and this is their hobby. But some of these dudes like, where do you find this stuff?
Yeah, sometimes that old stuff, like that, like World War II era construction stuff, is still valuable because like people just don't make it anymore,
Yeah.
and so like it has like a very specific purpose, but it's still completely outdated.
My favorite stuff is from the West Coast. It's that guy's Jesse James.
Yeah,
he has power hammers that are so big and scary. It's like I mean, you know, because you've seen the power hammers on like Forged in Fire, like the Blue Max. They got like a striking face like this big.
Yeah.
They're coming together, and that's for making knives and swords and shit. Jesse James has stuff where the cylinders are that big. You hit the thing, it's like the whole building shaking. Where did you find this thing? And where can I get one? And you know,
Yeah, a lot of that stuff was like World War II aircraft. They probably came out of the factory you work in.
Yeah. I want a power hammer for my house that you got to run off 483 phase current. You know, or it's better yet, it's just run, you know,
steam driven.
hydraulic ram powered stuff. Some of the stuff he has is because he loves that shit, and he's always got a lot of it. So yeah, that was. Oh, let's see. Oh, I got a text from Stacy. She loves the computer. I sent her the picture of the computer we were looking at.
Okay.
And then she's like, "Is Conlon in for half?" It's like, well, I don't know about that. But yeah, that's some of those.
I mean, I was going to be in for all of it, but
Okay, I won't stop you.
well, I did have credit with Dell, and now it got like reset because I guess I didn't spend anything for like 5 years. So, because I did have like $7,000 in Dell credit just sitting around, and now it's back to like $2,000 or something.
Oh,
Oh, it's sad.
well, we'll talk after the show. Not interesting to the listener. But yeah, if I could sponge a computer off you, that'd be great. But yeah, I love some of those because, of course, during this period of isolation, when I was off work for 6 months, I watched a lot of crazy stuff on YouTube.
Yeah.
Some of it even inspired me. It's like I'm almost good enough. But then I realized, oh, wait a minute, I'm not going to be commoditizing this with cameras and shit. I'm going to throw a lot of money out there, and my wife's going to be like, what the fuck are you doing? I don't know. I saw it on YouTube. It looked cool. Because she's already said, like, because I watched Forged in Fire and shows like that so much, and she's already been like, so are you, like, into this? I said, no, honey, I would never set up a forge and a giant anvil in our garage. I have enough hobbies here for that. I don't need to get into like fire and smoke and welders and stuff.
I'd love to have a machine shop, but that shit is expensive.
You know what I found out in Michigan? If you have a welder in your garage, you have to tell your insurance company. Because we've lost 2 houses out here to guys just having, I mean, just like MIG welders and stuff.
Yeah, well, you gotta have the gas.
And they'll be welding shit in their garage. They'll burn their house down because they
Oh,
won't realize what's going on.
Yeah.
They'll throw a spark in a corner, and then because it's a garage, it's not a workshop. So
Yeah,
you got
yeah.
gas and all kinds of shit in there. And
Yeah, there's some rules. Like if you have a lathe, like you can't, like sometimes you can't have a lathe at your house because then you're considered like that's considered like an industrial tool and that needs to be like zoned for an industrial area or whatever. I know there's like people like that where like people get sued all the time from their like homeowners associations. Like he's working out of his house. He has a machine shop in there.
got a guy on the corner, and it's weird because he's really active in our homeowners association. Now I know why. He has a lift in his garage. Like he knocked out the upper deck.
Yeah.
Made it so that he could lift the car up. Now you can't lift it up. You can work from like a seat, but you can't work from a standing position because the houses just aren't that tall. But I've seen him in there at night, running an air bench and shit, and it's like he's sitting under that. And then he put an off-board air conditioner in his garage. I was asking about that. I was like, so what does that cost you a month to just run that full blast? He's like, oh, it's not too bad. I was like, huh. That's interesting. He goes, yeah, you have to insulate your garage though, and all. He's always doing crazy shit over there.
Another thing that seemed cool, but like I know like I'd never take advantage of it, but like when we'd be at bases for AT and stuff, you'd see like the mechanic garages, and they say basically like when it's off hours, like you can like bring your car in and work on stuff, and you basically have a military. You have lifts that are designed to lift trucks that are like over 20 tons,
Yeah.
and the ceilings are like fucking 3 stories tall, and you can lift up as high as you want. And people did some rad stuff, some rad and very stupid and very expensive stuff. And you're going to be moving all the time because you're in the military. So a lot of great decisions went in there, but it looked cool.
I need some titanium, suspension parts. I like the guys. Another thing I watched were the guys that were buying the 2.5 ton. They haven't made these since the 80s, but the 2.5 ton 6-wheel drive military vehicles. There's like a cult of people that buy those.
Yeah.
And they're not good. Like they're not none of that, because people were buying the Oshkosh stuff too, like the things that look like space vehicles almost, with a front flat, and those are those big military transports, and you can buy those for like $10,000, at an auction.
Yeah.
But it's like there's weird shit in them, like they're 24 volt. It's like everything's incompatible with anything, and you're talking about wheel bearings that, like, oh, my wheel bearing went out. Oh, how much is that? $800. Whoa, Jesus! Is that like special military bearing or something? No, it's just an odd size, and these are like 6-wheel drive multi-axle vehicles, and a lot of them like the air brakes on a truck, because they have onboard compressors and everything. Well, the air brakes on a semi, how that works is they're always on, and but when the air compressor is running, that pulls the brakes off. So when you press the brake pedal, it lowers the air pressure, so the brakes come on. Military vehicles a lot of them work on a hydraulic and air assist, so all the air compression doing is helping you get the brake pedal down. And if that shuts off, they're really hard to stop. Like, you got to literally stand on the brakes, because these things are 18,000 pounds. It's crazy. These guys are going through all this stuff about, it's cool to have a 2.5 and go off-roading, but, if something breaks, it's like, yeah, it's a small fortune. And a lot of it, they don't have parts for anymore.
Yeah.
Or it was made for. That's why when you have people buy those military vehicles, like, this is going to be cool. It's like, no, it isn't. Those vehicles are designed around having thousands of people specially trained just to keep those vehicles running. They're not made for reliability. As a matter of fact, it's almost the opposite, because those are government contracts, so they want to constantly feed money into that system. But some of these guys do it. I don't know, some of these guys are trust fund kids.
Yeah, they bring it out for the 4th of July parade, and then it goes back into storage when they spend the rest of the year fixing it for the next year's parade.
Well, the one guy had a 2.5. He cut the frame and the rear axle off, so it was an actual 4x4. But he cut the back of it off. It's called quadding it, or they have a term for it anyway. But these guys just like remove this whole assembly. And then because the tires are like inboard and outboard, they have a weird setup. Well, then you got to flip the axles around, or not the axles, but the spacers. You just flip them around backwards, so the tires front and back are in alignment now, because you're not doing 6 wheels, you're just doing 4. And then you got to custom make a bed. And then now when they go off-roading in them, if the engine's good, they're amazing. It's just like, this thing has so much ground clearance. But it's like, how much fuel you're going through? Because the one guy said he gets like 4 miles of the gallon diesel out of the truck, and it's like, what are you doing here? And they have multi-speed or multi-range. Some of them have multi-range axles. They got like a high-low on it, and it's just really odd. And then you got to turn it on and wait, and an alarm goes off, because it won't let you press the start button until the air compressors are up to pressure. But if you don't have the right batteries in them, or one of your batteries are dead, that whole cycle will just drain your batteries. You won't be able to start it. This is something I want to get into.
All that stuff is approachable when you compare it to like people who collect airplanes.
Yeah, well, yeah. It's very reasonable. I want a 747.
I remember it was like a Pawn Star or something, and they bought like this Cessna from like the 1970s, and they rebuilt it and sold it for like almost $200,000.
Really?
Yeah, I was like, is that how fucking expensive planes are. The one that's like almost like 50 years old is still raking in that kind of cash.
I mean, private planes are something I've never looked at, but I imagine
Yeah.
they're expensive.
And it was always fun. What was it? It was like $1 Million Repo or something like that, where they basically like repossess like boats and planes from millionaires who just like decided not to pay back their debts, and like these people repossess airplanes and shit like that. And it was fascinating, overproduced, and probably like made up, but it was cool. It's like, we're just like, he's hiding his Lear jet at some airport in Arizona. I was like, the guy hops in it and like starts taking off. It's like, what? They go to some cop and like it's like, this is ours. Here's the keys, and like, and we're just gonna run away with it.
I know guys that used to, that repossessed multi-engine speedboats. I know guys that did that for like, I mean, there wasn't just that, but they got a bulldozer once from like a construction company or something. The guys just quit paying for it or something. But the multi-engine boats were funny because the one guy, it was like a boat, but it had two giant V8 like marine duty high performance engines in it. And marine duty means they have like roller rockers, are very well because they're made to run at high RPMs constantly.
Oh, okay.
So those engines are like, if you put them in a car, you'd be set. You know, they're very well built. Well, this guy had no business buying this apparently based on his income, but somebody gave him the loan and he didn't give a fuck. And when they went to repo it, they're like, oh, this thing's why is the trailer turning so easy? He'd taken all the engines out of it. And so he just bought this thing and gutted it. It was like a $250,000 boat. He just wanted the engines and components like that out of it because he was going to file bankruptcy anyway. And then they were like, well, this is worthless to us. That's like half the cost of the boat, or those engines and all the components. And it's like, so they like tried to get him for vandalism.
What did he do with the engines?
Put them in cars, I guess. I don't. Nobody knows. I mean, hillbillies that just were constantly. These people had no sense of the law.
Yeah, those are the ones that always seem sad is when they repossess the semi trailer because you know it's like that's that guy's livelihood and he can't pay for his fucking semi trailer.
Yeah. No, these guys went after like people. You don't need a cigarette boat with two engines. It's like the kid's not eating because that's not being fed. But
this could easily remedied by Google, but I'm gonna put it to you. Why do they call it a cigarette boat?
Because the cigarette manufacturers used to sponsor them, I believe.
Oh, okay.
I believe. I could be wrong. That's what I always understood it to be.
Okay.
And then I don't know if the term cigarette boat actually applies to the kind of boats I'm talking about anymore.
I just imagine the shit like from Miami Vice that's a cigarette boat, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Those are very high powered. Those are like jet planes of the water. And they have a long range too, because they can just nothing but fuel in them. But yeah, again, I could be full of shit on that. That is often the case.
I saw a new movie from Amazon Prime.
What'd you say?
The Vast of the Night.
I've never heard of it. How was it?
It was pretty good. It was like because there's nothing in theaters now. It was like hopping on Rotten Tomatoes, and it like was up there and like highly rated. And then I watched like a trailer for it, and it's like, and there's like these glowing recommendations. It's like the best directorial debut in years. I was like, well, I gotta see this movie, and so I watched it, and it's So let's get the bad parts out of the way. This movie's very short, but it's gonna feel very long because almost every take is like 5 minutes long. But it's sort of a cross between like Pontypool, X-Files, and like Steven Spielberg, like 1950s nostalgia.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how it's essentially like it just starts out and there's a guy who's like a tech wizard and he's like helping set up the audio for a basketball game, and it's a small town in Texas. I think it's Texas. and then everybody's going to the basketball game, and then he goes off and to go do his radio show because he runs a radio station, and then he gets followed along by some schoolgirl who just bought a radio recorder, and then she starts running I think she takes over from mom or something, but she starts running like those switching boards, and it was like really cool because it's like, I'm not sure how the switching board worked, but like they have all these cables, and like it has an XLR cable, and every time you put it in, but when you take it out, it'll just like zip back into the hole, which I'd never seen that before. I always see it just like kind of wires. I didn't see the thing like getting retracted back in there. I was like, a lot of like just kind of cool like old school equipment. And then there was a weird signal, and then like they're trying to figure out like what the hell's the signal, and it's like, and I don't know like when it would be odd. I don't know because it takes place in the 50s, so I'm not sure. Because like you're sitting the whole time, well, obviously it's aliens. Like you're sitting there, but like nobody in the movie is like jumping to that conclusion.
Right.
So I'm like, when did like UFO nostalgia when did that start being a conclusion that people would jump to? So like you kind of have to like reset your mind and like to get into the people in the movie. It's like, what are they thinking about this? And it's pretty good. I think it's pretty well acted by people you don't know at all. So.
Okay.
But also there's a lot of like production things where it seemed like the long takes were there for budgetary reasons.
Are they just padding for length?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of, I don't know if it's like interesting or just like poorly done, but there's a weird thing where like it focuses on a TV at the beginning, and it's like, I'm not sure if it's the Twilight Zone or it's just very Twilight Zone-esque. Because it sounds like Rod Serling and it looks like some Twilight Zone shit, but I think they just like avoid doing that directly.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't want to buy the rights to.
I don't know, maybe they could. I can't remember. I just can't remember that part of the movie. And then it's supposed to be like this. Everything happening is happening on this TV.
Okay.
So it's supposed to be like, oh, this is a Twilight Zone episode, which was an interesting review on Internet Movie Database where the person was tearing apart for being like, this is how long a Twilight Zone episode is, and this is too long for it to be a Twilight Zone episode. It was like I think that's a weird way to knock a movie.
This is my critique. It is different from other people's. They're more valid.
I mean, you can say a movie's too long or too short, and like, yeah, this is definitely stretched out, but like his comparison that like it should be a Twilight Zone episode is like, I don't know, because it's like, I think it's like 89 or 90 minutes, and obviously like I think 80 minutes is the minimum for to be able to be shown in theaters.
Okay.
Like worldwide, it has to be at least 80 minutes. So sometimes if a movie is like 80 to 90 minutes, it means like that's just a well-crafted, edited movie, very quick, ready to go. And sometimes it's like we needed a pad for length to get it into theaters.
When did everything stop being 90 minutes? Because I remember for a long time that was almost your standard runtime.
Yeah.
And then we got into multi-hour stuff. Like that seemed to change like in the 2000s.
I don't know, like 70s, like shit was, I mean, like Godfather and shit. You had occasional movies that were like 3 hours long, but that was just on occasion.
Yeah, well, that was like directors and people that could get to do that stuff.
Yeah, but yeah, now everything's like you have like, hey, let's do this. Let's do a Transformers action movie. It's like, why is this almost 3 hours long? Everything in it, almost everything in it, other than the action, sucks.
Yeah. So I remember like RoboCop's like the 90 minutes, like, a lot longer, because you're like, what's going to happen next? But everything seemed to fit into that box.
Well, I think because like right now that you have the whole like, you know, people want to make series, so I think people like want to have like I think there's a lot of things in every movie that's meant to set up another movie.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's like spacing out the movie by like building hooks into the series long arc or whatever. Okay. There's that, and there's also probably the idea that, you know, these movies, you know, there's not like they're put together fast. Like even if there's 3 years between a movie, like that script was probably written a month before production started, and maybe it's being written during production.
Yeah. Sometimes written as their actors are saying the lines. Some of these movies.
And usually all those movies like have like, you know, like literally 20 writers on it.
Yeah.
and people just don't know what to cut because everybody wants their thing in the movie. So there's that too.
Okay. I just wondered about that.
That's my guess. That would be an interesting documentary. Why are movies too fucking long? And then you have the documentary be too fucking long.
Documentary. Done in the old David Lynch style where there's no scene selection. Stop. You got to go back to the beginning.
So Vast of the Night, check it out. It's on
Yeah.
Amazon Prime.
I
So.
think I'll do that tomorrow.
But yeah, it's like I said, it's short, but it'll feel long, which is it's a knock on the movie, but I think it's worth a while, especially if you're into UFO shit and
Yeah.
1950s technology and shit like that.
A lot of reel-to-reel tape players. and
Yep.
We got to get the evidence, and this guy's like,
Yep.
like,
Yep.
we got to hide the evidence. It's like this thing's as big as a dinner plate. It's like, I don't know where you're gonna. Not as convenient as a thumb drive.
Yeah, and then I looked up the director, and yeah, he has no history whatsoever. So it'll be interesting to see what he gets to do forward from here.
Yep. He'll do two things. One will be good, and one will fail. And he'll go up again.
Or I'm kind of suspicious, like, hey, why is there no information on this guy? Is like, does he have like weird politics that would make everybody uncomfortable?
Yeah, he's like this.
There's literally only one black character in the movie, and he's a voice. You never actually see him.
So how do you know he's black?
1950s.
Because when I go to Internet Movie Database, it shows the actor, and he's black.
No.
Also, in the movie, he says he's black. So,
Oh.
I wouldn't knock him for that. Like, if you're an independent director and you're putting movies together, you're kind of using friends and local people. So I don't expect it to be a rainbow of everybody to be involved. So especially for his first movie, I'm not going to knock it, and I usually don't knock that stuff anyways. But when people bring up that as a negative, I understand. But
I'm still surprised that Parasite didn't get hit for that. Still amazed that the Academy was like, this might not work. But they didn't.
the least diverse movie of the year. And then the other movie I watched on a whim was, well, not on a whim, a Hellraiser.
Oh, with the first one?
Yeah,
Oh, what'd you think of that?
I was interested. Have you guys ever watched?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Times.
Because like what I actually like, what I've probably seen most is the sequels. Because
Oh.
I don't think they ever like I don't think they ever like. I think Hellraiser is deemed too good to be like repeated on like television, and they usually go for the sequels, which were more like Friday the 13th,
Yeah.
where it's just like, here's some crazy shit, and this one's more of like a weird story
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
with sex and violence and very interesting production. I mean, it's pretty simple. Like because I always hear it recalled as a masterpiece, and I don't think it's necessarily that, but like it's very original. Like I can't. There's not shit I can compare it to.
Yeah, I see. I've always seen the original Hellraiser. As a matter of fact, I think the original Hellraiser is the only one I've ever watched front to back of the Hellraiser series.
Okay.
And I liked it because it kind of reminded me of another movie I like called it was a Carpenter movie, I think, called Prince of Darkness.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't like that, but if you actually sit down and watch it, it's sort of cool.
But the Red Letter Media, they were doing they're doing a half in the bag, and they were talking about this movie called Rawhead Rex.
Okay.
And it's just it was made in Ireland. It's based on a Clive Barker story, but they kind of toned it down a lot. So, and it's like it just looks like a weird 50s horror movie, even though it's shot in like the 80s or something.
Yeah.
And like the monster was supposed to like transform into a giant penis at the end, and obviously they didn't do that.
Oh, why not?
They did have the monster either piss or come on a priest, but they did it in a way that it was interpretable either way, so they got away with it.
Oh.
Well, plus they had the movie Kill a Kid with the monster or whatever, which was controversial at the time. I did watch like oh god damn, what the hell's the YouTube thing called? Like Good Bad Flicks, I think, where it was talking about that movie.
But anyway, so like how this gets to Hellraiser is because Clive Barker saw what they did with Rawhead Rex, and he's like, "Oh, I got to take control of this." So that's why Clive Barker directed Hellraiser, because he wanted to make sure he got his vision across.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, because he was a fairly famous author before he made that movie, and
Right.
I didn't know he's British, so I learned that too.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's some interesting stuff because like apparently he said like the crew for that movie was so patient with him because he didn't know anything about filmmaking.
Oh, they just kind of guiding him along.
yeah. But yeah, they only spent $1 million on that movie, and like that's pretty good for just $1 million. I mean, there's no names in that movie other than
No.
the dad plays Odo in Deep Space Nine.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Now that you mention it, I didn't think about that before, but yeah.
But yeah, it's the plot is basically like this guy is thrill seeking. He discovers this box which will bring him like, his next thrill, which is basically getting ripped apart by he gets ripped apart by hooks. And it's in some strange universe with the Cenobites and Pinhead and it's like pleasure and pain are one and the same or on opposite spectrums that reach around and become the same thing or different, whatever. It's all weird and interesting, and so yeah, there's a lot of sex in this. But I didn't know it was basically like the movie is about the guy, his brother. It's like their mom's house, and he was staying there, dies in the house, getting ripped apart by the Cenobites. And then the brother shows up, and then he bleeds on the floor, and then his brother starts resurrecting. And then his new wife like had an affair with the brother, who's now just like a corpse that's an animated corpse. And then she agrees to like start to like luring men like sexual like getting
Seducing men.
yeah, seducing men to come to this house so she can kill him, so that she can feed the brother blood, so he can come back to life.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's an interesting concept.
Yeah, it's all that's the only really the one Hellraiser movie that I've watched front to back a few times because
I've seen bits of so many of the other ones. Like I remember on cable they had I can't remember which one it was, but there's one they go to space, and they had that one on all the time.
Yeah, that was always dumb.
And I think the spaceship was just the giant cube. What they call that? Is it Tesseract or something like that?
Yeah, correct.
So yeah, and it's on Amazon Prime, so you can watch Hellraiser.
I'll probably watch that again.
It's really, yeah, I think it's short. I think it's only like 90 minutes or what. But
Yeah. It's directly, how would you say? It's a very straightforward film. It's got a lot of weird ideas, and it's gory and violent, but it doesn't go down weird. It's like everything sort of makes sense in a way. I mean, for that kind of movie.
yeah, well, it's like it's your standard horror movie, but there's more thought, interesting and provoking thought behind it.
Yeah.
They're not just killing people. There's a reason behind it.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying.
Yeah, it's fucking weird, and it just merges sex and violence and gore in a way that's like intriguing.
It's like, do you like being uncomfortable but in an interesting way? Hellraiser's for you.
Yeah.
And I forget what it was originally, but it had a different name that seemed kind of silly and stupid. But Hellraiser seemed way cooler.
Yeah, it was a good name.
It was like Cenobite Holiday or some shit like that. I can't remember.
Well, let's see, I'm on this thing right now. The Hellbound Heart was the name.
Oh yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah.
I believe the second one was called Hellraiser 2 Hellbound or something like that. So
Yeah.
they did reference back to that. And I don't know, Clive Barker might have been involved with the second one. Eventually he got out of it, but
Yeah, he just like took a check and like, yeah, go ahead and ruin it.
yeah.
He was a producer and a writer on the second one,
Okay.
and then producer on Hellraiser 3. And then he did The Lord of Illusions, director, writer, producer.
Is that the one with the dude from Quantum Leap in it?
Yes, Scott Bakula.
I vaguely remember that movie.
Yeah. Well,
I remember kind of liking it, but I haven't seen it in forever.
yeah, I don't. I generally. Yeah, I like that movie.
Yeah,
I
Clyde.
also, I also like Prince of Darkness. They're like, and I guess they were made the same year,
Huh.
so you can watch them both. They're equally kind of weird and fun. It was like it seemed like there was a lot of hell going on that year. A lot of themes in the '80s. Remember when the year 2000 was when it was all supposed to end? That's what demons are coming and the Bible and all kinds of apocrypha.
Oh yeah, and I've watched the first 2.5 episodes of The Outsider,
Oh, okay. Yeah, I love that.
and accidentally the last episode.
Oh, okay.
So on the HBO Go, there might be a way, but I don't have it set it up to have like separate accounts or sign-ins or profiles. That's my profiles. So when I went, I couldn't remember the name of the show, and it wasn't on their recent show list.
Yeah.
And so I just looked at it, and I couldn't remember Jason Bateman, so I had to like go to like who's in Ozark, and I went from there to find the series. And then I searched the series in the HBO Go, click on The Outsider, and it starts playing. It's like, all right, here we go. And unbeknownst to me, it starts playing the last episode in the season.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. We're just starting right off with a shootout. It's like, and I thought this was like going to explain like who the investigation team is, because I know there was like a murder and there's an investigation.
Yeah.
And then like somewhere after the credits, I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to know shit. There's no way this is the first this is the first episode of this. So I have some things kind of spoiled for me because I know a main character who dies.
Right.
And I know that, and then there's just a character introduced in episode 3 that I know is going to churn on people.
Yeah.
And also, I don't know, Andrew, do you know about the series?
No, I haven't heard about it.
It's on HBO. It has Jason Bateman. It's a really interesting murder mystery where you just watch the first episode. If you don't like, well, make sure it's the first episode. It's really good because they'll either suck you in or they'll be like, "This is stupid." It kind of spins. The first episode spends like the first half showing one side of like what's happening, and it's like slam dunk. This guy killed this kid, like no doubt. And then like the second half is like, no, he didn't kill the kid because here he is, definitely. And then it's like really interesting like how they deal with it. Now, unfortunately, I think what is an unintentional spoiler, maybe, I don't know, is that once you realize that this is this is based on a Stephen King book, you're like, oh, some supernatural shit's gonna come in at some point. But I don't know, maybe it doesn't, maybe they pull back from that. But
I mean, I read the book, and the book is horrifying to read because it vividly describes like child murder. And when I was reading it, I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, this is too much. But there's a reason why it's done. It's because they really want you to hate. You know, they want to show you like, oh, this is how violent this thing is. And this is why, you know, what happens later in the books. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, this is why this had to happen. The series kind of goes, it hits you with that. And you definitely know that's going on. And then the series kind of goes its own way where it makes a minor character into like a much bigger character in the series than she was in the books, which is actually was a good choice for telling the story. But yeah, it's in this world that they've created, like the supernatural, it doesn't exist. There's no character that comes in. It's like, oh, my grandpa used to tell me a tale of the skinwalkers. No, that doesn't. They have to actually in the TV show, they make it one person. They have to put it together. It's like that Occam's razor thing. It's like if it can't be this and it can't be that, it's got to be this. And it's like, well, on all these people are like, fuck that. That doesn't exist. That's not real. So everything in the series is people gradually coming around to accepting that like there must be something out there we don't understand, because it takes into account all modern technology. Cameras everywhere, cell phones, people's location, and that's what creates the problem in the story. It's like No one can be two places at once on two cameras in different places, miles and hours apart. We can't have fingerprints here and fingerprints 4 hours away and video camera and cell phone evidence that these people are both in these places. That cannot happen. There's no way you can do that. You can't fake all this stuff for a small town murder. You know, governments can do weird shit like that. But yeah, they basically come around to there is supernatural shit in it, but it's not huge.
Okay.
Just realizing and accepting that like maybe we don't understand the world as well as we think we do, even in the 21st century.
There's also a lot of good like scenes in the series so far where like sometimes they make a scene that is like very like this is just a boilerplate Hollywood like investigation, like this is what things do, like this is what happens in a Hollywood movie, and then sometimes they pull back from it. It's like, oh, this seems more realistic. Like they kind of almost like point it out.
Yeah,
because there's like that one scene where like the guy goes after shooting someone. The cop goes in and he's like, "Are you supposed to be here?" And he's like, "Nope." And he's like, "Can I get in the evidence room?" And he's like, "I don't know where the keys are." And they're on the desk, and he takes them like, and this is like a wink and a nod, like, "Yeah, we're letting you do something you're not supposed to do." Like that's a pretty standard detective thing. But then there's like the part where like he goes to the psychologist, and usually like in a standard Hollywood thing, like the guy would just like conceal everything and like pretend everything's okay. It's like, and he gets a stamp of approval and he's back to work.
Yeah.
And here it's like, no, everything's fucked up. Like I'm still not over the death of my son. There, I said it. There's like, oh, okay, good, we're doing. It's like it's more realistic that way.
Yeah, the main investigator in that, I did not realize that guy was an Australian actor until I looked him up.
Well, here's the weird thing I haven't. So I started but did not finish watching Killing Them Softly.
Okay.
And in that he uses Australian accent, and he's just like a slurry fucking drunk.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, and like while I was watching this, I was like, where the fuck do I remember that guy from?
Yeah.
And then like, oh, there he is. Also that movie's weird because like it just starts off with this weird Obama stuff, and then they're like robbing a card game. I'm like, I don't know where this movie's going, but I haven't finished watching it yet. And then like, all right, he's the bad guy from Star Wars. What was the one? Rogue One.
Yeah, that's Grand Moff or whatever he was.
Yeah. They really cleaned him up there.
Yeah, he doesn't look like the same guy, but he is the same guy, and he's a good actor. And
yeah,
because that's what's good about The Outsider is not only do you have this horrifying murder of this child, but you've got a guy who is obviously innocent, who's he doesn't end well. It's not like, oh well, he's found innocent and everyone comes together and hugs. No, it's way worse than that. And then these people, it kind of goes into that, like they have dark lives. Like these people are affected on multiple levels because of their own problems going on, and no one really forgives anyone else. They're just kind of like, yeah, I guess we'll awkwardly run into each other in the supermarket, but my life's fucked and your life's fucked, and there's no real. We can't explain why because everyone would think we were crazy. So yeah, it's a good show. You got to be patient with it though. It doesn't move along at a clip. Like there's a lot of realization stuff that goes on in it, and
yeah,
it's because you kind of know as the observer. It's like, okay, well, yeah, exactly. This is what's going on. You got to move on from here. But what they have to reveal is like the characters accepting, like, well, maybe there is something we don't understand what's going on. And it takes a long time for them to get to that point. It's because usually, something like you said in Hollywood, they have the aha moments and all the characters are on board and we're like, we're going to kill the bad thing, but not in this. It takes a long time to get everyone, on board. And you don't really learn much about the bad thing either, other than it's really bad and it's fucked up. And
also, you always forget how pervasive or how prolific Stephen King is.
Yeah, yeah.
In that he has like multiple series on Hulu, multiple movies on Netflix, and also HBO's doing shit of his too.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Just plenty of stuff to share around.
Now, yeah, because they interviewed him about The Outsider, asking him, what he thought of the changes, and of course he was like, "I'm pretty enthusiastic. I think they made the right move with some of the changes they made." And because I don't know if he had any input into this at all. I think he just signed it over.
Yeah.
And he said later, he's like, they did a good job.
Is this one of his more recent books?
Yes, this book came out in 2019, I think.
Okay.
Maybe 2018. But I remember when I read it, like the first third of it, which was all about the murder of this kid and the teacher and all that. And it was like, it was so grisly. I was like, oh, I don't fuck this. It's a little too much detail. Like, I don't need to know all this stuff. But it kind of made sense later. It's one of his darker books. If I can, if that makes sense. Because there isn't an overarching, like, supernatural, like, we're going to find a magical solution. No, we're going to go hammer it out with guns. That's how this is going to end. We're going to fight evil with a bunch of guns. Because we don't even understand what we're dealing with, but we're pretty sure we can kill it. So, yeah.
That needs to be a line in a movie.
What?
We don't know what we're dealing with, but we know we can kill it.
As life functions on Earth, we know if we shoot metal through this thing's body at high velocity, it might disrupt its organs enough for it to die, at least die long enough for us to light it on fire, or whatever. I won't ruin it for you, but yeah, I enjoy it. Me and Stacy watched every week. We were like, okay, what's going on? And usually I got to get to bed pretty early before work, so I was like cutting into my sleep time. Just keep it going. Let's watch this. Because the episodes, like a lot of HBO stuff now, episode lengths they're not all linear.
Oh, they aren't?
4 minutes we cut off. So some of them are 48 minutes. Some of them will go like an hour and 10. But I think they're just more focused on the narrative than they are like, okay, we got to cut this off. Because this movie gives itself, or this TV series gives itself a lot of space to breathe.
Yeah.
They're going to explore things, but it does pay off, I think.
And then I have another thing to show.
Things.
And then we should probably get in the book.
Yeah.
So this is called the 8-Bit Dough.
Okay.
I'm sure. Well, the company's called 8-Bit Dough, so they make controllers, and this is in the visage of the 6-button Genesis controller.
Oh, okay. I thought that looked vaguely familiar.
Yeah, I mean they can't make it directly the same, but it's pretty much exactly the same, except they add shoulder buttons. That's new.
Okay.
So that's a nice. So basically, you play pretty much all the emulation games for like the Super Nintendo, Genesis, all that stuff can all be played on this, and it's a nice little controller. And I always like the 6-button Genesis controller, and then the added shoulder buttons. You can do a lot more with that.
Yeah.
Pretty simple. Hooked it up to my my Mister, which I'm still trying to figure out. Well, I was watching another podcast and they were talking about the Mister because everybody's building a Mister, and then they were talking about how like, yeah, if you just want to put this shit together and just read documentation, like you're gonna have a hard time. It's like, oh, is that why this kind of sucks? Because they're talking about like one of the guys like, yeah, I'm on 3 different Discord servers and I gotta have people walk me through everything. It's like, oh, okay. Because the Genesis stuff, the Super Nintendo stuff, and the Game Boy Advance stuff, I get that that's all working pretty much fine, except for one of the Zelda games doesn't work on the Game Boy Advance. I still can't get Neo Geo games to work. I can't get TurboGrafx games to work. I haven't tried Nintendo games. I'm pretty sure they'll probably work.
What about Atari Jaguar?
That too.
Okay.
I haven't tried that. I don't have a ROM file of the Atari Jaguar yet.
Oh, okay.
It can do Atari 2600, Atari 5200. I think that was the second one.
Okay.
And then they can do like Apple IIe stuff, like old computers.
Oh, do the Zonk robots and stuff.
Yeah. I haven't. So I've been trying to get some of those libraries. And Commodore 64. That's the other one I've been. But I haven't tried any of that stuff yet.
What you need to do is recreate a tape drive.
They can do that.
Yeah. Okay. Glad somebody's doing that.
And they even have a converter for the thing you can add to it, where you can have a tape deck. Because I forget which one it was. There is a system that ran on tapes.
Commodore 64
did it? Oh, I think it had an add-on. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know if it was. Yeah, it wasn't all what it ran on, but I know they had that. I don't know if the one that completely ran on that.
Yeah, because you could you'd play the tape and it could feed the data into the Commodore. I think the MSX did that. Yeah, the MSX did that. And so there is a tape adapter. So if you have these original tape games, you can get a tape deck and plug it into the thing with a fucking good old stereo cable, and then load up the game, and then but then you don't have to do that again. I don't know, maybe you can, but yeah, you don't. Once you have the ROM, you don't need to bother with the tape. But maybe that's just a cool extra feature that you can do.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of neat add-ons to this. Where if you want to, you can basically just hook up. You can get old hardware so you can physically plug in the games and play the game from the MiSTer, but through the actual the tape, the cassette or whatever, the game, the original game. So.
Yep. What were those called? PET drives or something? They had a name.
Not sure.
When I was in school, they were just phasing those out. Because I'm not that old where that was the main system, but they had them for different stuff, and you put the tape in and wait your turn. So you had to wait.
So I think we had a 2E. That was the one with color, right? The Apple 2E.
I think so. We had the one that.
Or is it the 2C? I can't remember. It's there's 2E and 2C. Maybe it was a C because that mean color.
Yeah.
Because one of the most famous Apple computers is just the one with the green screen that's basically a word processor. Which we also had that, but the cool one was the 2C.
Yeah.
And that I played stuff was it Reading Rabbit and Math Rabbit and Math Blasters and all that shit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, and those were made. The word processing one was it was those were indestructible. It was like a solid aluminum case or maybe a steel case. I don't know, but I know we had one, and it was 35 or 40 pounds.
Yeah.
And all it was a green screen word processor with a couple disk drives, and we had that for a long time. And then we had the 2C, and then we had a Hewlett Packard, which was our first PC computer, and we were kind of late to the game on that one. Because we never had internet in Indiana, did we?
No.
Wasn't that that wasn't the thing?
I think one time I got to work because you could do. I was playing Doom, and you could through your phone do a LAN to LAN phone connection and play Doom multiplayer. I did that once, but you didn't need you didn't need internet for that.
Right.
I do remember we did have those AOL discs at the time, but I didn't know how they worked. So you just put them in. It's how do I get to the internet now? And it's you had no idea.
Yeah. You had to have a phone modem. Remember that? And don't call the house. Off the internet.
Don't pick up the phone. I'll lose connection.
Yeah, because I didn't have internet till I moved to Michigan.
Yeah.
I lived in Indiana after you guys left, but I was I can't even afford a computer, let alone an internet connection. And it was really dumb shit too. It wasn't something you'd want to do. There was a few websites. It was I remember when there was 100 websites. Check these out. It was on Time Magazine. Remember when that was a thing?
I think the first time I used the internet was at school in the library, and you had to use Metacrawler. I think I don't know. It was Metacrawler and Yahoo were the really the first popular search engines.
Yeah. And after that, you had Ask Jeeves and Lycos.
Yeah.
There was a few other weird ones.
But then everybody just no, Google works. We're good.
Yeah. I remember when Google started. No one else. Yeah, it's because that was in 2000 something. They started using it at work. It's oh, well, why would you use anything else?
Well, at first, it worked fine, but I think the best thing about it at first is how clean it was, because it was just a landing page and a search bar. There wasn't all that other shit that Yahoo was doing, where it was punch the monkey ad just coming out of nowhere.
Yeah, those ads that would come up slowly. You got a whole stock ticker and a weather report on the right hand side that would slow your screen down.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody wanted that.
Although we still have that. I think it's a Hewlett Packard. No, it's Compact. Remember that portable laptop? No, it wasn't. You can't call it a laptop, but a portable computer that Dad had.
Yeah, that big brick.
Yeah, we still got that here.
Yeah,
we found it during the move.
It's got the red screen on it. It has the Lotus 123 word processing program. That still run?
Probably not. I haven't plugged it in, but I doubt it. I think it's the angriest I ever made you at me one time because you were typing up like it was like 10 o'clock at night and you're furiously typing up a report for school. And I wanted to show you something on the Game Gear, so I unplugged the computer to plug in the Game Gear.
Oh, okay. That sounds about right.
And you had to you lost like pretty much everything.
Yeah, those days you had to save. Like they didn't automatically save.
Well, and also like that computer is supposed to be portable, but there's no like battery on the inside. But for the weight of it,
Yeah.
you'd assume like this has a battery. Like nope.
No,
You,
I just had, like,
you
memory.
drag it to the next outlet. That's how portable this is.
You know, high tech.
Anyways, we read a book this month.
Oh, yeah, we read a book by James Joyce, The Dubliners, which is it's like a book of short stories, all set in Dublin, Ireland, and anywhere from like 1910 to 1915, I think. It was published in 1914, so, but it was just a story of kind of lower middle class, working class people, different things in Ireland. It started out with like kind of kids and really young people, and then adults, and then older people. And it
Yeah.
was 15 stories. Some of them are really short.
Yeah.
Some of them are connected. Like the last three, The Dead, were connected, but they had different narrators in each one. At least that's how I read it. I read this years ago, and then I reread it for this. But it was there's a cool thing about good short story writers is so there was no action in this. No one got killed, or there wasn't a lot of sex and violence.
Okay, no, but okay, because there's like a few stories like they kind of just ended, and I'm like, wait, did somebody die? Because there's that one with the kids, and like they yell at the end of it, and I'm like, wait, did the kid die? And then
Oh.
and then there's that one where it's the lady on the boat, and she's like running away with a sailor, and she's like trying to run away from a guy, and then like they talk about her falling off the boat, and I didn't know if she did or not. And, like, did she fall off the boat and die? Like I didn't know.
Well, no, she didn't, but she decided to stay in her rotten life with her abusive father and trying to keep that. So in a way, she fell off the boat and died because she didn't run away with her Argentinian guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that, like in the stories you read into.
Yeah, because I didn't know like what kind of censorship there was back then, so I thought they were kind of writing around like blatant murder and stuff, and also sex.
No, actually, he wasn't. They were just doing. James Joyce was a guy. He was born in Ireland, and he grew up and he lived in the Dublin area. But then he left Ireland and kind of wrote from France, and I forget what other city he lived in. See, I think he married a lady who was British, but he kind of never went back to Ireland after he left. And he was in Italy. That's right. Yeah, he was an English teacher in Italy, and he hardly made any money. And this book got rejected like a whole bunch before it was published. This is his first book of short stories, The Dubliners. And but yeah, he had a lot of things about he didn't like he took shots at the Catholic Church a lot in this, and he took shots at
Well, I'm not sure. Well, it's just like kind of characters debating it in the story, so I'm not sure how much of it's a shot or just it's just debate.
No, he didn't like him. He was not.
Or is that stuff where it's like he's always talking? What was it? Fuck. What was the group? He said like, yeah, they never changed. They got it right. What was it? The
Jesuits.
Yeah, the Jesuits.
Yeah, the Jesuits never were reformed in the history of the Catholic Church. The one guy was like, "That's because they preach to the rich, power." Yeah, so that's kind of taking shots because that's not. I mean, that's using a narrative voice to do it. But yeah, he had a lot of anger towards them, and you got to remember, like at the time, because this was before Ireland was independent of the UK. Like,
Okay.
there was no Northern Ireland at this time. It was just they were working towards independence, and they tried to achieve it. Because I think when did the Easter Rebellion happen? Like, I don't know, but yeah, this was.
I feel like I'm missing stuff from the book because I feel like I need to like do a history lesson on Ireland before you read this book because you're not going to get a whole lot out of it if you're just kind of doing the story straightforward. Although Did your guys's there's like this academic review of the book that comes on before mine. Does yours guys version have that?
Oh, I didn't have that on the Kindle. No. I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't have it in my paper copy at all.
So like yeah, it's just like it's like this academic paper that a guy wrote about like the importance of the Dubliners, and it's actually like better than the book.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, it's also like a lot of lofty writing where it's like, oh, almost all this is over my head. Like use like the word efficacy, and I'm like have to look that up. It's like, what the fuck does that mean? It's a great sounding word, but I don't know what it means. Basically, it means about like how good you get your point across.
Yeah. The root word is effective on that one.
Okay. And yeah, it's just talking about like how this what everything in this book does to as a mirror to like what Ireland is, things about like how there's actually like surprisingly what I thought from a male writer, there's a lot of like female characters in this book, which I guess you wouldn't really expect. Just men writing for men, like why put women in? So there are like a lot of like female characters. There's stuff I think on Wikipedia it talks about how this is the height of Irish nationalism, and like people are like waiting for a book to come along and really solidify what it is, and apparently this was the book to do that. I don't necessarily like, I want to understand what they mean when they say that, but I just didn't get that out of the book necessarily.
Well, remember when the guys were in the? I can answer that one for you because I forget what the name of the story is. But remember when the guys were in the political club?
Yeah,
They were canvassers, trying to get people to vote for certain candidates, and the one guy was a guy who worked because they said working for the castle meant you worked for the UK government. So they were talking about people. It's like, oh well, he's got the address of the castle, and then they were talking about the German guy. Monarch coming there. It's like, yeah, let's kiss his ass instead of the queen's, because that, let's kiss his ass instead of the other guy, because it'll just be another monarchy for us to be under the heel of. Or it wasn't said like that, but it was similar to that, and that was kind of the thing. That whole the debate those guys were having while they were getting drunk in that club was essentially like, what direction are we going to go if we're independent? Because are we just going to have another power structure here that's just as anathema to our interests as being under the England, or that's so there was things like that thrown in there, but it was conversation because a lot of his writing is conversational.
Yeah. There's not like maybe sometimes a problem I have with short story collections is like you don't really get to go in depth with anything.
Yeah.
So here it's like I don't think I remember any character from the book. Like I remember like what's it about, but I don't remember any characters' names other than like Kearney. Is that a character?
I think so.
And then there's like Thompsons and Murphys and stuff like that, but I don't remember where they fit in anywhere. There's like the one guy who's like meeting his friend. His friend has a weird name. I think he's British. Do you remember that one? Or he's just having a beer with his friend. And they're talking about receiving
the race car stuff.
No.
Yeah.
This is the one where like after he gets done like having the beer with his friend, he invites him over, but his friend doesn't come over, and then like he ends up yelling at his kid because now he's jealous of his kid because his wife isn't paying attention to him anymore.
Oh, I'm trying to think of which one that. There's Corley, Linehan. They're talking about producing a woman. I don't know if that was the story.
Look, you guys can. Andrew, what do you think?
It was very boring, and I hated pretty much all of it.
Well, good.
except for the second story, which was the child molestation story, because that was pretty much where that one was headed. But yeah, it was definitely not my kind of book. I did not like James Joyce, and he's a weird individual with a lot of weird shit. So
we're not going to do Finnegan's Wake next?
I'm not going to.
Okay.
Sorry, I really had a tough time slogging through that book, and it's a short book. There's like a lot of it, like the stories make people basically start off in one position in life, and then they just resume that position in life at the end of the story. So it is very cyclical, and it makes sense because they're all poor, middle class, and usually you're going to end up in the same part in life you started off in. so that makes sense. But at the same time, it's just it's not. I don't know. I maybe just struggle with like older style writing where it's turn of the century and it's him, talking about Irish citizens and stuff like that. But like some of them were kind of interesting, but to be honest, like it was really hard to read most of them.
Oh.
So, and I actually ended up looking up the last couple because I didn't read those at all because I just kind of got tired of, because I mean, some of them are kind of like, I don't know, they have interesting, like they definitely do multiple things and more things you think a short story would do, especially for that time. But I guess I don't know where James Joyce's writing career was before that point because he said he was having trouble getting a book published and stuff like that. So I didn't know if short stories, I guess, were super popular back then.
Yeah, well, you could publish them in serial form in magazines.
Oh, that's right.
And a lot of writers that did long form later started out in that because I think these are the only short stories he's known for. Because his most famous book is Ulysses, which is an interesting.
Does that one include characters from this?
I don't think so.
Because there's some other book he wrote that brings characters over from this.
Oh, I don't know.
So I was conflating two different stories. I was conflating Counterparts and A Little Cloud. A Little Cloud is the one I'm thinking of because it's Chandler is the main guy, and then what's the weird guy he's talking to?
Ignatius?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Ignatius Gallagher.
Yeah. That's I remember that one.
Well, and also an interesting thing from that forward was it was talking about how big Dublin was.
Yeah.
Where it was like bigger than like Vienna and almost rivaled Paris in some ways.
Yeah, it was like 300,000 people at the time.
Yeah. Which I wouldn't think to bring that, but it's an interesting comparison. Like once you bring that in, it's like, oh, yeah. So that's why I say like you kind of need a history lesson to get much out of this. But I did like how it was written, and I always love when people said "says I."
Yeah.
Like people need to say "says I" more.
Yeah.
I says and says I. Because I don't know. Sometimes when they said "says I," it was like somebody in the story telling a story, so they would say "says I" instead of "I says" to indicate like the person inside the story is telling a story where they have to say things like "I said" or "he said."
Yeah, I've noted there's a certain, I don't know if they do this anymore, but when you watch documentaries about like the what they call the Troubles, a lot of those guys they'd interview in prison, and the Irish are getting grim when they're like, yeah, I put a bomb under his car and killed him, so I did, and and if I see him again, if I see his daughter, I'll punch her in the face, so I will, when they're having dark thoughts, they seem to punctuate it with "so I did, so I will, says I, kill them all, says I." It's like, yeah, he says it. The one. But
all right, so sorry. There's actually an interesting population graphic that came up last week on Reddit where it was talking about the population density and distribution of Ireland. Mm-hmm. It was pre-potato famine to present day, and basically the population of Ireland has never recovered the potato famine. It's actually less populated than it was back then.
Yeah,
the population center is still Dublin, has the most people, and then actually it used to be the west coast of the country was the most poor and the most rural and agrarian, but now it's like the northern part of the country is all fucked up and goddamn poor and shit, and every place else is decent, but it's not like horrible or anything. So it's just kind of interesting. It's like, oh, okay, basically it's still Dublin's the biggest city in Ireland, and still pretty much nobody lives in the rest of the country. So it's just kind of funny.
Well, that's like in the books or in the stories that the guys, in Dublin would talk about, like the big farm boys would come in, with their they would mock, because the one guy was like a scribe for a law firm, and he was a complete alcoholic.
Yeah.
And he hated his boss, and it's like, but they would always make fun because his boss was from the country, so he had what they called a provincial accent, and they would mock it. And that's that's why he was always in bad odor with his boss, because he got caught mocking his accent.
Oh yeah, that was another phrase that I thought was like funny, which I'd never heard used before, is bad humor.
Yeah.
Like he strolled down the road in bad humor.
Yep. Yeah, those. Yeah, a lot of those turns of phrases just don't exist anymore.
I like the one where it's like, I'm guessing this is the original term, or maybe, but it was like for he's a jolly gay fellow.
Yeah,
And
Nope.
I'm guessing they changed somewhere along the lines. Like, no, we should say jolly good instead of gay because we don't like the word gay anymore.
yeah. Oh yeah, that you gay. That's a word that's like if you read older stuff, it's like yeah, it has the meaning's completely changed.
I
It's
don't.
like three gay fellows having a drink. You're like, are they at one of those bars? You know, but back then it would be like, yeah, they're just having fun.
The one that like probably shouldn't have, but like threw me for the loop was first. It was talking about like the children's booties on the fire.
Oh yeah,
And I'm like, oh yeah, boots, not asses.
yeah. Like, I know Ireland was intense. They're lighting their children's asses on fire. But yeah.
But no, it'd be really fun too to have like since gay always just mean happy or really good feelings stuff like that. But also there's different words for cigarettes, so it's like he felt so gay he needed a fag. Like, just
Yeah, that was interesting. Let's see. He wrote all these stories before he was 23.
Huh.
So this is what James Joyce, but that's at a time when you lived to be 40. So it was like, yeah, he was at middle aged when he wrote these. And let's see what I'll tell you the things I like about this. I guess the reason I recommended it and I thought it would be interesting is there's a lot of like foreshadowing in this. I like his relationship with like how he talks about priests and the priesthood and how the Catholic Church just ruled Ireland and some of the stuff that went on and it's like, I mean, he didn't come out and talk about like priests being pedophiles, but it was kind of sort of alluded to.
Yeah.
And then one of the stories, like I think the second story was when the two kids like ran off and that guy was having the weird conversation with the kid. It's like talking about women and it's like, oh, I like how they look at me that way. And I like to see, what did he say? Like, I like to see him walk. And the guy was obviously just like some older guy that was just saying for that time would be vaguely sexy stuff to young boys talking about women. And it's like, ooh, this is creepy. I mean, even from 100 and some years ago, this is creepy. And then I forget which one it was, but the guy who was like a lodger at a house and he worked for someone and he was apparently had some kind of relationship with this woman. It's like, so they have to get married. Like her mom was like, there's only one solution to this, marriage. And
Yeah.
it's like, that's it's weird how like religion nowadays is like, at least in America and the parts of America we live in, I think it's like there's some people that are serious about it, but even those people, it's kind of treated like it's a hobby. It's like, well, what do you do, Nathan? Well, I build models and stuff like that. And it's like, what do you do? Oh, I read the Bible and talk about the end of the world. And it's like, well, those are co-equal like hobbies. You have interests. Whereas at the time when this book was written, and in a lot of the Western world too, it's like, oh, these massive churches just controlled everyone's lives, and that you had to go talk to a priest to get it. Like the one lady, her husband was a drunk who would hit her, and she like had to go talk to a priest to get the marriage annulled. And it's like all this stuff would be handled through legal frameworks now, but back then it's like you had to go ask a priest if anything bad was going on in your life. Like, how do I correct this? And that's just so out of time. Like, you can't even imagine that now. But we're not talking like 500 years ago. We're talking 100 years ago. And in this case, in Ireland. But it's that's something I found fascinating rereading this, was how these people's lives were just dominated by these structures that seemed like just insurmountable to them. It's like, well, I have to do this. I must do this. I must. And like the guy who had his unrequited love with a woman who got drunk and walked on the train tracks. And
Yeah, I was gonna just ask about that. Are we supposed to be suspicious of whether she did that intentionally or accidentally?
the way I understood it, because that one was called a painful death or something. Let me look it up real quick. Yeah, a painful case. I think what happened is because he wouldn't have any kind of relationship with her anymore because she was married to a sea captain or something. She just became a drunkard, and they said she was fond of walking home across the tracks late at night, and that's how this happened, because she had fallen into drunkenness after he had decided, well, I can't do anything. And because we read that story nowadays, it's like, well, these two people like each other. She's married to someone else. Well, so what? Get a divorce and then be together. But back then, it's like, oh, I could lose my job. And they had all these things they were concerned about, which, these are traps in the stories that like, because all these people's their lives are unchangeable, even though they can imagine a better thing. It's like for this or that reason, this external factor keeps it from happening, whether it's the church, the British government, whoever.
Well, yeah, because there's also that speech that the guy gives where he's talking about like the youth and their weird ideas and the change they bring and how everyone's hopeful about it, but all the old people want to keep it down. It's like, I guess this cycle never ends.
Yeah, never stop. And if you're an older fellow like the one where the guys were talking about politics, it's like, yeah, he has queer ideas. Don't pay attention to him because he was talking about how maybe we need to get out of nationalism and stop resurrecting Irish history. That's not going to be our future. Our future is going to be in like manufacturing and growth. And the other guy's like, he has weird ideas. We all need to speak Irish again and resurrect that language into our roots because that'll lead us somewhere.
As far as I know, they do still teach Gaelic in Ireland.
Oh, that was a dead language until they started resurrecting it.
Yeah,
there's a whole weird story about that because they've tried to like modernize that, like because they do broadcasts on what's their station called, RT. They do broadcasts in Irish, and when you listen to it, it's like, oh, this is from Lord of the Rings. It's like the elves are giving us news.
It sounds like someone's like it sounds unearthly, I guess. Well, not unearthly. It sounds like a witch is summoning a demon or something.
Yeah, it's a weird.
Well, but like in a lofty kind of like angelic kind of way. We're resurrecting angels from the depths of hell too.
We're gonna talk to the pagan gods. The god of the moss, the will o' the wisp. We're gonna speak to him in this dead language that we resurrected. And, because all their signage and stuff is in, like, because what's the name for their prime minister? Because they have the, like prime minister would be the Taoiseach. That's their prime minister. That's like they have the Irish name for him too, and that's how he's addressed and appears on TV as Taoiseach. And it's interesting. Their current guy, who's the Taoiseach, is a doctor from India who's gay. That's the current. Well, he was born in Ireland, but he's an Indian guy. He's openly gay, and he's their prime minister. And because he had to quit being prime minister to be a doctor for a while because of the COVID crisis, it's like, oh, this is strange.
Who's the Irish politician with the dog? Do you know who I'm talking about?
That's the president, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, he always has his dog with him, even when he's giving speeches. Like his dog will be at his side. And
yeah.
He just doesn't care if he's at like a formal state dinner. There's his dog. Let me look that guy up. Because he looks like he's just having a good time.
So is there both a prime minister and a president of Ireland?
Yeah. One is Michael Higgins is his name. The president of Ireland. In Irish you would say it. I can't even pronounce that. Ushatratan. I don't know how they say it. But yeah, the president is. How has that happened? He's like a poet in something or another. But it's kind of like, our vice president is kind of like a ceremonial thing.
Yeah.
Where he goes around and meets people, but he's, when the president can't. It's kind of like that because I think I'm not sure how that works. I know he's elected separately, but yeah. But one is I forget what it is. It's strange. It's kind of like, you think of it as like Speaker of the House here.
Okay.
It's kind of like, that's how I would describe it. But their prime minister, or their Taoiseach, is named Leo Varadkar. And he is his parents were from India, and he became a doctor, and so that's interesting for Ireland. It's because it's such a small place. It's like, oh, okay.
I know John Romero of Doom fame has had moved there, and now makes video games in Ireland.
Yeah, because isn't that where Dell Computers is headquartered or something?
Oh, there's a lot of like double Irish tax loopholes, so a lot of companies
Yeah,
are
yeah,
based.
because Apple has a huge building there, no one's in it.
Yeah.
Just the, yeah.
Well, there was like a technology boom there for a while, and also they had like they had a really big like call center boom there.
Yeah.
So they could have like, so instead of like, well, no one wants to listen to these Indian people to get customer service. It's like, well, the Irish, like, we can pay them, we have to pay them more, but it's less than what we pay Americans, and everybody sounds better.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's so charming.
Did I help you? No, but it was great to listen to you try.
I keep drinking now. One thing in Ireland I know, like, because they made all their colleges public and available to everyone, and I know for a long time they had like, didn't they have like more PhDs per square mile than anyone in the world?
Yeah,
It
probably.
was something crazy, but I don't know. I mean, they weren't all like physicists, but yeah, I know they have a really highly educated population, but there's no jobs there.
Yeah.
That's the problem, because they always say, well, all the young people leave because they have these great educations, but they can, shovel hay. I'm like, well, no.
Yeah, there's no industry. Well, that's why the tech boom made sense. It's like, well, you don't need an industry. You just make the thing and send it out to the world.
Yeah, because I think TomTom
Yeah.
GPS navigators were from there, or programmed there or something.
Yeah, something like that.
But yeah. So anyway, Dubliners by James Joyce. Read it if you like short stories, and then read Chekhov's short stories. Or don't do any of it.
Yeah, I might check out Ulysses sometime because, like I said, it's the problem I have with short stories. Like, you just don't get in depth anything. So I think I like his writing. So I think if you just like spent more time with characters, I'd probably enjoy it a bit more. And I didn't hate it. I just felt like I was missing something.
Yeah, I mean, there were certain like historical things that I'd read other places where like, oh, that's what they're talking about. I'm no expert in the sad history of Ireland, but it's because it's kind of complicated, and not all of it. It seems like, oh, they just wanted to fight with each other and everyone else. Yeah, Ulysses is interesting because it's like a recasting of was it the Iliad and the Odyssey?
Huh.
Because Ulysses was the main character in the Odyssey, and this is a story about a guy. He's not called Ulysses. I forget. I have to reread the book. I read it years ago, but it's like it's this guy's adventures in London, and he's a normal, ordinary guy. The only thing that's weird about him is the main character is Jewish in Ireland. So he's kind of an outsider there. So he's always walking around. It's kind of like The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, but is told by a guy who's like, his ambitions are not to be a spy or to get the beautiful woman or the kind of the 1950s, 60s version of that. But it's like, I want to have a happy life. I'd like to have a cottage on the coast. Like, he has these small dreams, but he can never quite fulfill them because he's sort of limited by, number one, being an outsider, and then kind of by his own limitations, and he worries that his wife doesn't love him, and then he's like, but these other women are so much more attractive. So but yeah, it's sort of like an early. I consider it like a weird, like Life of Walter Mitty with a guy with very small dreams, but it's cast as if he's having this odyssey through Dublin as he's walking around, eating, talking to people, but it has this kind of adventurous undertone to it, which is. It's unique. And a lot of the stuff, like a lot of his books are just conversations. They're not like describing like in the great city, we have this and that and these tall buildings. It's mainly people talking about these things, but not necessarily like stopping to explain them, because that would be weird exposition because they already know about them.
Yeah.
So you can get the pieces of the story from what they're saying. James Joyce is interesting if you like writing. It's like, oh, this is like good conversation writing. Like, this is how people talk.
Yeah.
It's a little out of date, because people don't say fuck every other word. So we're kind of thrown.
I do. Fuck.
Well, I know, but that's why we're thrown by this, because people aren't using blasphemous obscenity every other word. But yeah, if you like that kind of stuff.
No, I think he had good dialogue writing most of the stories and stuff like that. And like I said, I don't think any of the stories were necessarily bad. I just didn't appreciate them because I didn't really like his writing style. So it's one of those things where it's like if I like pick up a book and I read like the first 5 pages and I just like have to slog through it, then I know that book's probably not for me. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's different. It's kind of the reason I picked it is it's like, oh, this is different.
Yeah.
This is not like, this is more like classical writing, but it's not like that kind of bizarre, Shakespearean dialogue. It's more like this is how normal people at that time talked with the situations they dealt with. And there wasn't a lot of entertainment back then. You had church and alcoholism.
Oh yeah, that was what I was thinking about. I definitely got the idea as like, oh fuck, like what do you do when you're not doing shit? Like this would be impossibly boring.
Drunk.
That's why bad things happen.
You're just drunk, or you're going to church, three times a week, or you're lusting after somebody's daughter, and she touched my hand, and my eyes rolled back into my head. It's like, wow, okay, you guys need some internet.
I believe what we're doing next is Phantoms by Dean Koontz, because I've never read a Dean Koontz book. And I know he's supposed to be good and sort of like as prolific or kind of like on par. Well, I'm not sure on par with Stephen. He's like your Stephen King, the other Stephen King.
Yeah, he's a little different, but yeah.
So
I think Phantoms is a good creepy book. So it's a little dated. I think it's from the 80s.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's creepy. I mean, there's a great movie adaptation of it. Don't watch, but it's there.
Want Ben Affleck and Liev Schreiber at the prime of their acting abilities.
Actually, if you read, it's kind of like Dune. It's like, yeah, read the book and know it, and then watch the movie. It's like, oh, okay, this helps visualize it, but don't watch the movie as a guide, because it's like, it's not nearly as creepy as the book. It's a book. The movie just visualizes some of the horror. There's a lot of graphic horror in the novel. It's kind of like The Blob if it thought and had, ambitions.
Yeah, so we'll be doing Phantoms next.
Yeah, it'll be a little different from James Joyce.
Sometime next month. How long is that book?
I don't know, 500 pages.
Okay.
Let me look it up. Let me not bullshit this.
Yeah, because I'm not sure. Stephen King can write books anywhere from 300 to 3,000 pages. I'm not sure what Dean Koontz does.
I'd say 500 or 600 sounds probably legitimate, but if I remember where's my house, I'd go look at it right now. But
it's 352.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. When was this published? Yeah, 83. But see, it's going to be a little dated, but it's not. It's not going to take away from the story. Because there's whole sidelines to it, but it's good at being creepy. And I've read some other Dean Koontz, but this is the one I'd have to say it's like, yeah, this is ultimately weird. Because some of Dean Koontz's later stuff it's like it's horror, but it's got it's quirky characters and fun people, and it's like, well, no, I don't necessarily. This does not have a lot of that. Because Dean Koontz kind of writes in themes, and it's like, I think some of his best books, as far as sales, were like Mr. Murder and
that is the stupidest name for a book, but it's great.
Yeah, well, I think the guy's an assassin. I don't know. I read it years ago. But there was
that seems like if there was a really popular Japanese animation and the direction, that would be the direct translation for it. It's like, here's this cool anime. It's called Mr. Murder. It's like, I don't want to watch that now. Oh no, yeah. Now I'll have to read that at some point. Just say, oh, what book you're reading? Mr. Murder. Get away from me.
Yep, it's about a killer roaming the streets, Mr. Murder.
Well, I guess he's not. I guess he's not beating around the bush with that.
No, I mean, yeah, Dean, you're not like. It's like, what does this mean? You know, you're not doing a lot of that.
We watched a movie this week.
Yes, we watched the interactive movie of Kimmy Schmidt, the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, Kimmy versus the Reverend.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, is this your first interactive movie, Nathan, from Netflix?
I did the Bandersnatch one.
Okay.
Does that sound vulgar when I say it?
Yeah, that's snatching it, you know.
Yeah, I know. Did I say something gross just now? Yeah, I did. That wasn't as fun as this one. This one, they actually like. I
Yeah,
felt
this is probably more clever than Bandersnatch.
Yeah.
Because I like it.
More.
So probably the one I was most impressed about, and I think you were talking about before we went live, is there's a part where you can have Kimmy kill the Reverend.
Yeah.
And I chose, and before it's like, instead of choosing the obvious one that's going to like continue the story, I was like, no, let's kill him in every way possible. And then like one of the scenes that comes up is like he'll pop up at the end of after your third choice. He's like, whoa, you fucking killed me in every way possible. That's screwed up. and he's like sitting in a lounge chair in hell listening to, what was it, like All Star by like Smash Mouth or something like that? Or,
Yeah. Oh, you're a rock star.
And he drinks piss from a puppet who apparently pisses like Coors Limeritas or something like that.
That sounds like
Well, that's the thing. That's the joke. Is the Reverend doesn't think he's in hell because he's enjoying everything.
Oh, yeah.
Like this song's been playing for the last 4 years and never stopped. Man, this party's awesome.
You guys, or I mean, it was part of the movie. Probably the favorite part of the movie, laughed the hardest, and my wife laughed the hardest too, was Johnny Knoxville's cameo when he's at the gas station, where they're like looking for the Reverend. The show in the pictures, like, yeah, he stopped by here looking to buy gas for hand jobs. He left with a kiss and a rose.
Yeah, I like the Johnny Knoxville character. I gotta go with my parole tether around the house. Weird shit like that.
And the baby just randomly has a gun.
Maybe with a unibrow.
Yeah. It's just like the gas station selling like the most useless shit. Like who's actually making money off that gas station in the middle of nowhere? It doesn't make any sense.
That was in West Virginia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kept having failures around that point, and it always like kind of looped around to the Reverend was taking the mole women to Florida where nothing was illegal.
Right. Yeah, this is.
But Nathan, since you didn't watch any of the show, it was at least somewhat followable, so you could enjoy it and not have to worry about it too much.
Well, like I said before, I don't know if I said it on the show, but this kind of reminds me of Horse Girl, but a little less dark. It's like the same kind of people. It's like these people are all vaguely mentally ill. They seem to have a lot of like positive charisma around.
Yeah.
And it's like no matter what awful shit happens, we're gonna be optimistic, and and.
Well, yeah, that's. I think characters are probably more optimistic in this movie because that's sort of the whole juxtaposition of the series is that Kimmy's impossibly optimistic about everything and everybody else is kind of terrible.
Yeah.
Because like Titus is like I don't know if Titus is supposed to be likable because I don't like him, but occasionally he has really funny stuff. But
yeah.
But yeah, she's supposed to be like kind of the bright. It's supposed to be like she moved to New York and New York's this dark place where there's no optimism, and like Kimmy's just there doing her thing. And oh yeah, also another funny thing. So at some point in the movie starts and then it does the opening theme to the TV show, the Unbreakable theme song. And if you hit skip intro, the guy who does the song will like, hey, what are you skipping the intro for? And it's like, fuck it, you're getting a longer song, and it's a longer version of the opening song.
See, I didn't know that part was interactive. We just let it play because we liked the intro to the show.
Well, I fell asleep, so I had to like rewatch this, and so at the second time, unfortunately you can't just fast forward to parts in this. You have to essentially you can like skip forward, but you have to reach a decision point. So you can't just like step through the movie, that's weird. So like I hit the skip intro, and so I found that out.
Yeah, I kept getting them killed, but that was okay. That was, like I said, it made it like a 120-minute movie into 2 hours. I want to see what happens if you do this.
And I think there's something, because did you get the thing where I forget her name, where she's like Titus's agent right now. I forget her name, but she ends
Jacqueline.
Jacqueline ends up like accidentally tearing down the whole Me Too movement because like they found out she was lying. It's like, well, if one woman lies, that means all women are lying. It's like Me Too's over with, guys. And they just start groping all the women and like, doing all this nasty shit. So I didn't know, because I think like there's a path through where like that doesn't happen, but like my path that happened.
I would rewind, or I would go back the 10 seconds, and it would let you like choose the other path.
Oh, okay.
I didn't do that for everything, but I did it for like some of the stuff.
I found it was disappointing because like the first choice you have to make in the movie is whether she's gonna wear the fancy dress or the stylish dress or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And so we picked like the stylish dress, and then it's like at the end of the movie in the wedding she wears the fancy one. It's like, we're glad we chose this one. It's like, what are you fucking talking about? We chose the stylish dress.
Huh.
It's like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Because I mean we failed about half the time, but I mean there's like that one part where they like, land at the airport and then they're like gonna wait for the Uber for like 1,000 hours or something like that. That it like shows what the outcome is, and it's like, well, we know that's not the right thing to pick. So we didn't do that one. But like other than that, like
Daniel Radcliffe was actually in this. Is like,
yeah,
that's strange.
So I mean, I guess this would be helpful because I was kind of confused. Like, I don't remember him being in the last season, and it's like he's not. So he's completely new to this. So, and I think they do explain that at some point, but.
Well, I guess I was just kind of drawn off from it because, like, when the show ended, like, it had a kind of like an ending that was like seemed kind of final and nice enough for the end of the show, and then where it picks up at, it's like, what the fuck? Where were we picking up at? Like, she was never fucking dating anybody at the end of the show, and it's like, oh, okay, it's been like a couple of years, and she's like been dating people, and she found this one guy or whatever. Okay, but it took a while into the movie before they explained that, so I was just kind of lost for a little bit as to why like Titus had like a fucking acting career now in movies.
Yeah.
Like she was like getting married and shit. I'm like, what the fuck did I miss? Did I miss like an episode or two in the last season? Because I didn't know why this movie came about. Like if somebody actually like wanted to get this made or just they saw the profitability of making it.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is like part of their experiments in the interactive thing. I don't know if this came along with Bandersnatch or not. Because there are other stuff like interactive stuff on Netflix. Because Telltale Games, before they went under, so like one of their games is actually on here. You can play it, but it's a video game, but you can just like play it through Netflix. Because it's just reworked as like you make a choice. So like there's the Minecraft the movie. I think it's Minecraft the movie or something like Minecraft something. It's an animated series of Minecraft, and you can choose your main character, male or female, and if you choose the male character, it's voiced by Patton Oswalt.
Okay.
And it's a choose your own adventure. I think there's like 8 episodes, and you can play it on Netflix. Which is what they were working on, and they wanted to sell more of that stuff to Netflix, and I guess Netflix didn't pick up on it, so they immediately went bankrupt and now don't exist anymore.
Yeah, but at least the Wolf Among Us 2 actually got made, which was...
Oh, is it made, or are they just working on it?
I thought maybe they're working on it, but at least it's... I mean, I guess my point is at least it's getting done.
Yeah.
Or whatever, because I was really worried that wasn't going to happen when they went under, since I was really looking forward to the second part of that.
Yeah, I need to... Because I was like, we played that for one of a video series we never done before. Again, we played it for that.
Bot never played.
And Yeah, that was a real big surprise. It was like I was just like, I'll just play this. Like I've been meaning to, and like I was just really like surprised about how cool that game was. So yeah, I'm glad it's gonna. Still haven't finished the rest of that game, but
Oh, really?
yeah.
Because of that, I actually bought and finished that whole game.
Oh, okay. Well, it helps somebody. I have like I almost have almost all that Telltale stuff, and I've played almost none of it.
Oh, really?
I think I played the Sam and Max ones that came out with. I think I played all those, and then I played all of the Walking Dead season 1. I think that's all the ones that I played all the way through, and then every other one it's just like maybe I played the first episode. I played the first episode of that Batman one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I played Walking Dead, played all of Wolf Among Us, played some of Back to the Future Telltale.
Yep.
Okay, so I played like the first season of that.
So the Back Future one's interesting because they have like this amazing voice double for Michael J. Fox. The guy sounds exactly like Michael J. Fox from Back to the Future. It's fucking amazing. But then they have Christopher Lloyd doing himself, and he just sounds like an old man.
Huh, that's kind of weird. I guess I never looked up the voice cast because I just figured it was Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd because I guess I didn't pay attention. So.
Well, there was like a famous video of like the guy, like he just like I don't even think he was like trying to get acting work for like voiceover stuff, and he had this video kind of went viral of him doing Marty McFly, but he still didn't. He still didn't get any work from it. And eventually, when they were making Back to the Future, it's like we should get that fucking guy. So he got some work out of it.
Oh, good. Because I really enjoyed that. I just didn't buy the second season of it or the third season. So maybe at some point when they have another Telltale like sale on Steam or whatever, I'll buy more of that stuff. But
yeah. Somebody owns the rights to that shit. They'll be on a fire sale at some point. So
because I kind of want to see if the Borderlands game was any good, Batman, and then also, God, what was the other one? Oh yeah,
the Jurassic Park one that's supposed to be shitty.
No, not Jurassic Park, the Guardians of the Galaxy one.
Oh yeah. And they did and they did a Game of Thrones one.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, so did everybody else.
Apparently, it must have been really shitty because I've never really heard about anything about it.
It did have some of the voice cast from the show, but not all of it.
Oh, well, that's unfortunate.
I think it did have the imp. Who the fuck is that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Peter Dinklage. I believe he lent his voice to the video games.
Well, hopefully he did a better voice acting job than in Destiny, where he got fucking replaced. So
we're gonna replace you by Noel North, a guy who's literally in every fucking video game.
I still don't know how Peter Dinklage fucked that up. Did they just not care that much, or did they just miscast him so poorly?
I mean, it could be poor direction. Because I imagine a lot of those voice cast people, they probably have to bring their own energy that they learned after doing thousands of hours of voice work. And Peter Dinklage is probably coming in there and is like, I'm going to be an actor. And it's like, here, we want you to read the instruction booklet to the player. It's like, oh, thanks. It also sounded like he was inebriated. It also seemed like he was probably inebriated to the whole thing.
No, because I've always liked Peter Dinklage as an actor. I mean, before Game of Thrones, he was in the, god damn it, what was the independent movie? It's like
Station Agent?
Yeah, Station Agent. He was good in that movie. And he's at like small bits, like he just says like oddly the gay lover in both the British and American version of like Death and a Funeral, something like that. I don't know how he scored both of those gigs, but cool. But yeah, he's always been a pretty good actor. Oh yeah, he's an elf too. I can't remember. I was like, what other movie was he in?
He plays a giant in Avengers Endgame.
Oh yeah, that too.
And he also played the guy who invented the Sentinels in X-Men.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
What was that character's name? I can't remember.
I have no idea.
Yeah, but anyway.
But yeah, this is the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, the Kimmy versus the Reverend. Very fun movie. So
Yeah.
This is a lot better than the normal like from most of these movies.
Yeah, for knowing nothing about this this franchise or anything, I enjoyed this movie. It was weird to see John Hamm. Like, oh, okay, this is interesting. He was the evil reverend or whatever.
Yeah. Andrew, I think you wanted to have thoughts about Extraction.
Oh yeah, okay. So the Extraction movie. I thought I talked about it last week. Maybe I didn't.
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, okay. So the Extraction movie was really good. I know it was done by wasn't it done by the Russo brothers or backed by them or something like that? Like
They produced it and one of them wrote it. It's directed by the stunt double of Captain America.
Oh, okay. That's cool. But no, it had really good action sequences play out, especially the bridge scene of the finale was really a solid piece and is actually somewhat realistic. I wouldn't say like the whole thing is realistic because I don't know if the whole Rambo concept really holds up in the real world. But at the same time, like it was actually pretty good and like it didn't have like the best like screenwriting or anything like that either. But like it was a pretty well held together movie. It was a tight run time. It didn't feel like it was too long or it was too short. Chris Hemsworth, I think, did an okay job. Like I don't think I've seen him play like a really broken down, depressed person. So, I mean, I don't know how he was.
Well,
a
except
black cat, I
except
guess.
for Endgame.
Oh yeah, that's true. Shit. Well, yeah, okay. So I guess maybe he did a better job of that in game, but yeah, he seemed like he was pretty distraught from losing his son to cancer and stuff like that, and his marriage falling apart and shit. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think his character had
I
a
think-
decent arc, and
Yeah, I thought he did a good job of bringing like a catharsis to the character that probably wasn't there on the page.
and then I mean, I think now it's more popular for the characters like if you're trying to redeem somebody or make them seem like I don't know, kind of like a piece of shit, but a useful piece of shit. Like it used to be more popular to redeem them and save them in some way, and they still kind of do that by like seeing him like play a good person and trying to help this kid out and get him back home and that. But at the same time, they also just don't do that by killing him. So maybe it kind of goes with the current trend of doing that, where you don't really get redemption, but you just get like hey, you're kind of a good guy, and then they kill you. So.
Well, I posited that he's still not a good guy. He's just like doing the right thing. And even that's debatable, but
Yeah, and then
well, because we were reading some criticism about like this is a what do they call that, not White Knight, but a white savior movie.
Oh yeah,
And then I was positing that it's not that because he's not a good person either.
He's not showing all these crazy foreigners like this is how you live. No, he's just killing everyone. He's killing people that you don't like.
It's just kind of like what makes him better is like he had the opportunity to just fuck off and not do a job and just let the kid die, and and nothing would have happened to him. There would have been nothing good or bad would have happened to him as that result. But then he decides he's basically going to throw his life away for a kid who's probably going to grow up to be an asshole anyways.
Well, David. Oh. Well, I mean, David Harbour's character even touches on that at some point. It's like, what is he going to do? Go home and then get killed or kidnapped again by somebody else because there's nobody there to protect him? And the ending of the movie is kind of vague because I think he's back in his home country, but he also might be in a different country now because I can't tell.
Yeah.
Just by the classmates around him and shit. So
Well,
I wish that was a little more clear.
Also, spoilers, they've greenlit a sequel and he's probably going to be alive. Chris Hemsworth.
Oh, well, that's going to be fucking weird. I don't know how you're going to play that off. You got shot a couple times and fell into a river, so that's not exactly what I'd call extremely survivable.
Well, there's a part at the end where there's like a figure off in the distance that the kid's looking at through the pool, and we're supposed to infer that that's him or whatever.
That's weird.
Even though he got shot in the chest with a sniper rifle and several other weapons.
On the neck.
And then fell into an extremely filthy river. And
Oh, that's the River Ganges. It's the healing river. I don't know where this was.
The healing shit pool.
Yep.
I mean, so yeah, I think that may be a little bit too far fetched, but I guess I don't know what they're gonna come up with.
Well, I mean, if they're gonna get an even bigger budget to make a cooler movie, I'm up for that.
Oh yeah, but
Because
Yeah.
I'd compare it to like John Woo's The Killer is probably a better movie, but Hard Boiled Man, that's a fucking cool movie.
It is. Yeah, I like the violence in this movie. I mean, if I was gonna give an A+ for violence, The Extraction's a very violent movie.
but no, it was very good all around, and it's nice to see Netflix continue their contractual obligation appearances with David Harbour in this movie, as well as last week with Mark God damn it, Mark Harmon and the stupid Spencer movie.
Was there anybody in the Kimmy Schmidt movie that like wasn't in the show that's like a Netflix like regular?
Who's the guy that was running the music festival? Because wasn't that SNL guy that was doing that?
Yeah, was that Chris Parnell or who the fuck was that?
Yeah, I think it was Chris Parnell because he was in like makeup and shit, looking big, and slightly more of inbred.
I really like that the girl who played the mole woman. I think it's like Ashley or Ashlyn or something like that. I can't remember her name. She has like really weird, goofy dialogue. And I like the one part she's like talking to Lillian, and she's like, "I'm sorry, let me start over. I love you." And there's nothing that like that sentence was like that's not a starting of a sentence that makes sense, nor is it in wake of her starting over a conversation.
That's just a bolt out of the blue.
No, it was nice to see a lot of the people come back in just to either have a cameo. I kind of thought Mikey was going to be in it slightly more just because he kind of had a slightly bigger arc in the show. But, whatever.
Yeah, I only saw him pop up in the like Wrong Choices stuff. I can't remember if he in any part of the actual movie.
I think he's in the wedding scene at the end for like a hot second,
okay.
but that's pretty much it, which is kind of weird considering, like I said, was more of a main character before.
Yeah, so that's the construction worker, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Mikey in the show is Titus's boyfriend. And Mikey is like he's like essentially his character arc is that he's bad at being gay, but he's still like this like dude construction worker. So all he wants to do is talk about baseball and like and like drink, but then he doesn't know how to be gay. So he's just like still like that like off-putting construction worker, but now he's gay too.
But no, other than that, like, when did Jacqueline, because it seemed like in the movie too, like she wasn't married to anybody that she was married to at the end of the season either. Because I thought she was married to, God damn it, he was in Arrested Development as like the never nude guy, and I can't think of his fucking name right now.
David Cross. Yeah.
Wasn't he still in the show in the last season? That character?
Man, I can't remember the last season because they split it up into two different parts, and I forget both parts. Other than the weird thing where like she basically becomes president of this Google knockoff.
Oh yeah.
And I can't remember. Yeah, that's all I remember of like the last season.
Because even that stupid robot from that company had like a little cameo in the goddamn movie.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird that like David Cross wasn't in it for like a second or whatever, and like you said, Daniel Radcliffe being in it was like nice, but also like where the fuck did Daniel Radcliffe come from and why is he in this movie? So. But he had some good parts, like especially the one where he chews to like explode the Reverend or whatever. So he's like, it's like, yeah, I cloned Kimmy, and it's like my family disowned me. And she's like, sex now, must have. It's kind of fun.
One of my favorite jokes from the it's not in the movie, but it's from the TV show. There's an episode where it's dealing with the Washington Redskins. And it's like something where like they figure out that the people who are protesting the Redskins are buying Redskins jerseys to burn them on fire, so they're making even more money. And then the way they convince the guy to change the name of the Washington Redskins is like they changed the name to the Washington Gun Takers.
Yeah, then every NFL team follows suit and becomes like a racist, horrible fucking name or something
Yeah.
like that. Just, just to capitalize on people burning jerseys and shit.
It's like,
Because I actually like the later arcs in the show for some of that stuff because it was really creative writing and really cool writing and shit. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, some of the last season was kind of forgettable, unfortunately.
well, I think it just for me it lost momentum splitting it up into two parts. Because like yeah, the first part and the second part are like completely like I almost thought like the series should have ended on the last of the first part because it's just all of a sudden Kimmy's under the scope of a sniper for some reason and like it's like she's gonna die for some reason and it just ends and I'm like what the fuck just happened. And then I don't even think they really follow up with it on the part of the second part of the last season. But it's a goofy show. It doesn't really need for series logic or anything like that.
Yeah, there's no canon.
And I was also kind of disappointed they didn't keep adding more. Because you remember how, like, the house or the apartment they lived in or whatever, like, they kept making it worse and worse throughout every season. Where it's like, oh, it used to be it's an old converted tugboat they kept put into a building or whatever, and blah, 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 like, all this other shit. Like, it was basically, like, who would ever pay, like, money to live in this fucking hellhole? But, like, those two people fought over it all the time. But,
yeah. There would always be, like, weird shit. It was like, oh no, is it 5 o'clock? It's like, oh shit, we have to like herd the rats into the corner. It's and then somebody's like, why? And then that's never answered. Like, herd the rats.
But no, I kind of missed that show. But yeah, I don't know if it really had any more seasons in it. But I mean, maybe they'll do another. Well, I mean, it's versus the Reverend, but if you go through the actual ending, does the Reverend just go back to jail, if I remember right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So maybe
well, in mine, he dies in jail. Did you guys get where he lives in jail?
Oh, yeah, that's right. He dies in jail, sorry.
But they don't show it, but yeah.
Talk about it.
Although I did see the first episode of Space Force.
Oh, okay.
I don't like it so far. It's by some of the team that did Parks and Rec, and so I might have to suffer through this because if anybody is a fan of Parks and Rec knows the first season and a half of that show wasn't very good.
Slow burning.
Yeah, they just had they literally somewhere around the second half of the season they get rid of the character that was kind of the stick in the mud in the whole process, and then they get Ben Wyatt, I can't forget,
and Chris Traeger.
Yeah, and Chris Traeger. They come in. I'm forgetting the actors' names. They come in, and it kind of like everything solidifies at that point, and then it kind of realizes the show becomes. I mean, like Ron and what's the main character in the show?
Leslie Knope.
Yeah, Leslie Knope. Like they're constant, so they work even in those first couple of seasons. But everything else is kind of weird. And even Chris Pratt's character doesn't really come into, like, he wasn't even meant to be a series regular. Like, he was meant to be like thrown away as like this shitty ex-boyfriend by the end of the first season. And the first season is only 6 episodes, so it's so when I say the first like season and a half aren't good, it's not a whole lot of episodes that aren't good.
Like the first 12 episodes aren't good.
So yeah, I watched Space Force. It's all right. A lot of the jokes kind of like missed for me. I liked who they have all the like secretaries of like the Navy and Army and all that stuff. I like who they cast in those roles. That's pretty funny. And then a lot of the jokes were just kind of broad and like didn't hit with me. And then there's stuff where like what's happening in the first episode is they're trying to like launch this spaceship that has like some sort of like net device on it to like stop satellites. And then like if the launch fails, then they're basically the Space Force is over and they're going to lose all funding. So they have, and the scientists don't want to launch because there's like a 45% chance of rain. And then like the ending conclusion is that like they launch anyways, and he says like, well, he's not a scientist, but he knows people, and like the scientist had an umbrella and there's only 2 clouds out there. It's like, so I know this was going to be okay to launch. And recently, as we've seen, there's been a launch delayed because of weather, and then they delayed it, and then they launched them, and everything's fine. So that kind of doesn't work in the favor of the show, because it doesn't mean he's right. And also, like, he says he's not a scientist, but he's supposed to be like he's supposed to be able to fly basically every airplane. That's why he was like a 3-star general in the Air Force, and now he's the head of the Space Force. But he's supposed to be this guy who can like fly any plane, and like, if you're a pilot, you're a scientist. Like, you know how science works. So that doesn't really hold true for me. There's also a part in it where he has like a chauffeur that flies around a helicopter, and she's in the Space Force. But she's embarrassed of calling herself a spaceman, so she kind of like uses her rank from the Air Force. And so she's like she's like impressed that he can fly an F-22 Raptor. And so this is like where I'll claim ignorance for myself. I don't know if that's the pinnacle of every pilot. It might be. So I just don't know if that holds true or not. And I haven't looked it up. But I don't know why, she's a pilot herself, flies a helicopter, and like why she'd be impressed. Is the F-22 Raptor the pinnacle of all aviation? Is that what you ultimately want to fly or not? I don't know. So but I was just kind of like, I took a pause there, but although I did hear it.
Oh, sorry.
What were you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna say is like, so what's the weakest character in there? Just the main lead, or?
He's fine, but it's like it's like it's one of those things where it's like this guy's supposed to be in charge of a lot of shit, and he's just kind of played too much like an imbecile. And he also doesn't seem like he's not. Also, he hated his boss, who's the head, the secretary of the Air Force, and he was hoping to take his job, and he gets assigned the Space Force, and so now he just seems reluctant to do this job at all. So there's like nothing to root for. It's like this guy hates the job he's supposed to do. He's not good at it, and like. And he's an idiot, and it's not like and it's not necessarily in that fun way. It's like he's not the guy from The Office. Like, that's not how he's supposed to be. But that's kind of what they're playing off of, like, is people's nostalgia for The Office.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a good thing to do, because obviously you can't be an incompetent loof and then be in charge of a fucking national government organization. Hopefully, doesn't mean it doesn't happen in real life, but goddamn it.
Well, there's like one flashback bit where they're like, he's talking with there's one funny thing where like his secretary is constantly fucking up, and like people come to his office, and they'll just like go to the office, and then like this, as soon as he opens the door, there's like somebody in there, and he's like, what the hell? It's like, oh, he told me not to tell you that he was here. And like happens like 4 times. That's kind of funny. It's like his therapist and his like social media guy and all this stuff. It's like all these people he doesn't want to talk to. There's like one weird flashback scene where like he accidentally launches a spacecraft because he like puts his foot up on the console and like hits the big red button and just launches a spaceship. And they don't like say like whether it was successful or not. It just happens in a flashback. But like I said, yeah, this and I'll watch the rest of them. But yeah, like I said, Parks and Rec was bad at first, so we'll see. It was also like they're talking around that they just mentioned POTUS. They don't say that this is the Trump administration or anything like that. So they just say it's a crazy time.
Yeah, it's the Trump administration. Who else would authorize this fucking Space Force? So, but speaking of the current administration, okay, so with all this Floyd stuff and shit like that for the last week, like a story that like Klobuchar, Biden's potential VP pick, failed to prosecute the guy that freaking killed Floyd. And, she says in an interview that's not her fault because she was going out the same year that they were prosecuting him and shit. So technically, she didn't drop the ball or whatever, but she also didn't prosecute other people that shot and killed civilians and shit like that during her tenure. So I wonder if his VP pick's gonna be shit now, and he's gonna have to choose somebody else. Because if people are looting and rioting everywhere over this shit or using it as an excuse, then it's probably not a good idea for your VP pick to be a woman that helped all that shit go under the rug. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. I read that, but I don't. That's one of those things where it gets like vague. It's
Yeah.
because I hear that and I was like, okay, define a U.S. attorney's job for me, and how many cases come across their desk, and how much of that is delegated, and that becomes a thing where it's like, they almost seem like, well, she colluded with the Minneapolis police not to prosecute this guy because she's secretly a racist. I don't know.
No, I mean, I don't think there's any part in the article that said like it's definite proof that she like colluded or definitely kept things under wraps, but basically just saying her record of trying to base or any kind of case where cops killing innocent civilians or whatever came across her desk, it seemed like nothing ever came of it. Basically, is all they were referring to.
Yeah, I mean, you have to almost look at the individual merits of the case and how it was. I mean, stuff that no one will ever do. They'll just run with whatever sounds good. But it's like, yeah, that's
Or sounds really bad.
whatever.
What's gonna grab attention?
What gets advertisers? What gets clicks? Yeah, so I don't know.
Well, because at least it was alluded to, like the guy that killed Floyd, like he shot and killed, or the first guy he shot and killed back in 2006 or whatever. Guy had a shotgun, but he was holding it up in the air, and then they shot and killed him. So it's like, well, technically the other guy had a gun, so I don't really see what necessarily is bad about it, unless there was something else they're not saying about that story. But I mean, it also implied that guy killed more than just that guy and Floyd. So I don't know what the hell the other thing was, since they didn't specifically mention it in that article. So
yeah, it's one of these things. It's like, oh, it's not good. The optics on this are not looking good. And
I saw a news headline where the guy who killed Floyd, his wife wrote a bad check.
he's gonna step on her neck and kill her too.
That was a headline I saw and obviously did not click on because that's fucking stupid.
Well, I mean, I know the big headline for today has been that she's divorcing him or whatever, but it's like, okay.
And she was Miss Minnesota at some point.
Ooh, gives a shit.
Yeah, divorcing him that's called survival. So what bunker are we gonna live in the rest of our lives?
Yeah, because it's between that and like Trump's tweet about like, basically if the looting starts, we start shooting or whatever. It's fucking insane too, because it's like, yeah, you don't just fucking shoot people for stealing flat screen TVs and fucking vases and lamps and shit out of Target.
Yeah, just kill people. Someone told me, I don't know if it's true or not, but is that something that George Wallace said, or is that misattributed?
I saw like a little headline saying that, but I didn't read it, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't. If that is true, I don't think channeling George Wallace is going to. That's not going to ease racial tensions in this country.
Who's George Wallace?
He was the segregationist who ran on the Democratic ticket. Segregation.
Oh, okay.
Segregation forever, and that guy. Yeah, he was crazy.
I was talking to somebody this week. It was an older gentleman, and he was talking about how he's a diehard Republican now and shit. So fine, whatever. And then he was like, "Well, I was a Democrat once, and I campaigned for Barry Goldwater." And it's like, yeah, that makes sense why you're a Republican. The hardcore racist Democrat candidate that ran. Oh, he was a Republican?
Yeah, he was the one who was. That's why Nixon became president, because Goldwater was seen as too nuts. It's like actually use nuclear weapons.
Okay, because I was just going off what that guy said, so maybe he's full of shit. So
Hillary Clinton used to be a Goldwater girl.
Yeah, she was a Goldwater Democrat. There there were people that thought. I mean, and I the thing when I talk about people like that, it's always in retrospect. I don't know at the time what they looked like, but because I know no one liked Nixon, and it's like, oh, this guy's obviously shifty. Goldwater says what he means and means what he says. And sometimes you got to look at what he says, and it's like, yeah. There's a book about Barry Goldwater. It's I think it's called Conscience of a Conservative or something. It's kind of it's actually kind of Barry Goldwater makes more sense in that than some of the other stuff I read about him. But yeah, it's.
I was like, this has nothing to do with politics. But I like whenever they made like a new airplane, he got to fly it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So any experimental airplane, like he got like first dibs. Like I want to test this out. So because
that sounds about right.
Because like I think he was like a World War II bomber pilot or something like that.
Yeah, he had. I think he was fighter pilot. Actually.
Fighter, okay.
Let me look it up. That's exciting for everyone.
No, because other than that, the only thing political gaffe this week was Joe Biden saying with his 40 years of political experience, he's going to beat Joe Biden. So
well, he is. That's right.
It's true in a way.
Did Trump beat you? No, Joe Biden beat Joe Biden.
Did Hillary, did she lose to Trump? No, she lost to herself.
I remember, like, I had something. I blocked another person on Facebook.
Uh-oh.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it was like it was like a classmate of mine. I didn't know him too well, but like I knew him from class, and friended me like a long time ago. And then like when the Trump presidency came about, he revealed himself to be a Trump supporter. I was like, oh, okay. And one of his famous, I don't know, well, I'm not sure if it's a gaffe, but he's just like, I guess he like at some point saw like, oh wait, no, Trump's too ridiculous. There's no way he can win. But he feels the populism behind it. He's like, Trump could win the popular election and lose the electoral. It's like, oh, if only. Because like what follows that is like the Democrats shouldn't be happy about this hollow victory, but like no, now it's like win's a win, baby.
Yeah.
So, anyways, so he's like a sous chef in Texas.
Yeah.
So I don't know like how things are for him. I know he bought a fixie bike with his Trump bucks, riding that around town.
Okay.
And then there's just like something he posted is like, I know there's a lot going on right now, but this image just really speaks to me. And it's a hand drawn image, like pencil and paper, of like somebody wearing like a face mask, and the mask is shaped like a hand covering the mouth. And I'm just like, fuck you.
What do you think's going on?
Well, you see, there's a meme going around heavy right now or whatever, where it was talking about like Bill Gates has a facial recognition software that will surveil your every move and keep tabs on you. The only way to beat it is to wear a face mask. So it's just like we fool those stupid people. It's like well, hopefully, but I don't know.
You just tell them shit like Bill Gates is going to make you carry a card around with your picture and your address on it and your name. Tell them shit like that. Like what? I said, yeah, it's going to be called the golden whatever Gates card. It's like bullshit. Like get people out in the streets rioting. Bill Gates is gonna make a certificate issued when you're born.
And your actual name.
You'll be assigned a number on a card, and it'll be so many digits long. It's the number of the beast. If you don't want people to track where you're going, leave your cell phone at home. Or better yet, just realize no one gives a fuck whether you live or die. They're not watching you. They don't care. Do you have billions of dollars? No. Then guess what? They don't give a fuck.
Did you find out the Goldwater thing? Was he a pilot?
Yeah, he was. He flew basically did resupply. He flew the smaller, like the cargo type planes,
Okay.
the DC-7s and stuff. But yeah, when he was a senator, he flew like Stratofortresses and stuff because he was the head of the appropriations committee. So, Mr. Senator, come right here. We have something for you. But, well, I think that's it for me this week, folks.
All right.
Got to get some sleep and get back to the hot mask at the Rouge. Nothing better than wearing a face mask when it's 92 degrees outside. Doing wonders for my complexion.
Have you gotten the face mask where it looks like you have sunburn after you take your mask off?
No, because my forklifts have fans on them, so I can kind of cool my face.
Okay.
But the problem is like when you.
Well, I mean, I work in a freezer, but
Yeah.
the thing I get like after like, well, I mean, also I work 12-hour. Well, you work 12-hour days too, so
Like 10, but yeah.
Is like a couple days after work, after working 40 hours, like my face looks like it's sunburnt and it'll peel from having the face mask on.
Oh.
So I didn't know if anybody else was getting that or if it's just my problems.
I haven't got that, but we can only wear masks that they're stamped with the Ford logo.
Okay.
So they're like the paper ones. The only thing I'm going to have to change is I'm going to have to get the things where you put them on around the back of your head. Because my ears feel like someone's taking dental floss.
Okay, yeah.
High velocity.
Or you can get a hat. You can do that thing like Stacy has it, where you can get like a hat and do it and put it in either the things in the back or put like a button on your hat and attach it to the button.
Yeah, some lady at work's making the cotton ones where it's just 2 buttons and it goes around.
Oh, okay.
So I'm gonna get one from her because that's the only thing that's bothering me with it. Other than that is when I gotta look straight up to load stuff, my glasses immediately like totally like I can't even see through them.
Yeah.
My glasses flipped up and one of the bosses came by. It's like, you got to keep your glasses on. It's like, yeah, I can't see. And he's like, what do you mean? So I put them down and looked up, and then I looked at him, and you couldn't see my eyes. I said, how do you want me to stack this, dude? He's like, you know what? Okay. I realize what he actually just acknowledges, like, you're right. I hear what you're saying. I was shocked. I was like, whoa, really? I thought we were going to have to, like, have an Indian knife fight over this circle and tie our arms together.
Some trick I haven't tried, but I learned because it only happens if I don't get the seal right underneath my eyes. Like that's where I get like the foggy glasses.
Yeah.
But somebody said if you like wash your glasses in dish soap, that it'll keep it fog resistant for like a couple of days.
Yeah, I'll try that then. But yeah, I mean, so far at least it's been pretty mild here. I mean, today it was like the high was 64, and like right now, what is it outside? It's like 40, 46. So it'll be pretty mild next week, but it's coming where it'll be in the 90s consistently. And like, yeah, this isn't. I want to see how their thermal scans they use when we walk in are going to work when it like, because Michigan, like in July, it'll get where it's like 81, like at night, like at 10 o'clock at night, it's 81. It's like, and I'm walking half a mile just to get to that check station before I get into the plant, which I got to walk like another 3/4 of a mile. It's like, so if they're checking your body temperature and if it's above 98, they won't let you in the plant. Well, come summer, hucking it all the way in from the parking lot, no one's body temperature is going to be 98.9, especially when it's, but they don't have it. They're just doing, because we go full production on the 12th. So there'll be no parking spaces because now we have to park in certain areas of the parking lot.
Yeah, because they're thinking about doing a thermal scan at our work at some point too, but I don't know if they'll introduce it before they relax all constraints or not.
Yeah,
they'll probably get all the equipment just in time to not use it ever again.
Yeah. Probably.
$1 million worth of imaging equipment.
Well, they suppose they already have all the systems set up at the mills in like Arkansas and like Virginia and shit. But I don't know if they're for 60 people or if they're going to bring it into our facility or not.
They're doing like 900 people a shift. So yeah, they have 2 of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, Ford went. There's so much liability that they're trying to mitigate that they'll follow every rule. You know, they don't like everything's just hosed down with bleach every day. You just smell it down the air. It's like you're walking into a swimming pool.
Well, at least until Trump, if we finally pass another stimulus package for those people that really are in need, which we really need to do. But at the same time, like the rumor is that basically he'll put into the Republicans and him will put into writing that you basically sign away your rights to sue your employer for putting you at risk or whatever if they, do put you at risk.
Yeah, they're
and
looking at that.
And it's like talking to a few people, especially small business owners, where it's like, yeah, that's really needed because fucking people sue the shit out of you for anything, and it's like, yeah, I get that, but at the same time, if you're a bigger employer and you really did put your employees at risk for stupid fucking reasons, I think your employees should have a right to sue the shit out of you. So,
why would we do the right thing when we could mitigate risk?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know why. Because because of the hobby shop owner or whatever, he's like fucking so hardcore up Trump's ass that I don't know how the fuck he sees daylight. He's like, oh, we can't go around. He's like, what was it, that fucking stimulus package or whatever? I'm like, yeah, $1 trillion in state aid and, like another $1 trillion for individuals and all this other stuff. He's like, yeah, but weed dispensaries can put their fucking money in banks. I'm like, yeah, that helps the economy because look at all those billions of dollars sitting out there that aren't in the economy right now. You're just sitting in somebody's fucking grow house or whatever. It's like you can fucking, it's like you can tax the shit out of it, and you could also fucking make banks, way more profitable by giving a huge influx of cash and boosting the economy. He's like, well, fine.
Well, didn't Virginia just legalize weed?
I think so.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah,
but since
they tried to take everyone's guns away and then legalize weed. Notice.
Here's the old Guns for Weed program.
Old switcheroo. Yeah.
Next, we're gonna do WMDs for meth.
That's what. Yeah, there's people here make that point. I mean, not people I know, but I read Michigan stuff. It's like, well, they let the weed dispensaries and liquor stores stay open, but not the churches, and that's a big deal. It's like, well, 500 people don't congregate in a liquor store. Also, if the weed and the liquor store and the weed dispensaries, people are actually getting something out of that. So
people don't get in their Sunday best, stand shoulder to shoulder, and sing at each other's necks.
Yeah, normally happen.
Well, I mean, that might happen at the weed store. I don't know.
One. So. All right. Well, this week for the American Greed Factory podcast, this is Nathan.
This is Conlon.
Andrew.
Goodbye, America.